Welcome, everyone. Tonight is the monthly meeting for the New Canaan Planning and Zoning Commission. Was supposed to be held next week, but for a whole host of conflicts, we needed to move it to tonight. So thank you for joining us tonight. It's Thursday, September 25th. This is a hybrid meeting. We have some people on Zoom. We have some commissioners on Zoom. And the balance of the attendees and commissioners here in person. I'll take roll call first. Dan Radman here. Krista Nielsen's on her way. John Kriz here. Chris Herring. He's not on? No. Okay. John Engel. Not yet. Paul Knag. Here. Mr. Swerdlow, by chance online?
He'll be absent.
He'll be absent. Okay. Tom Benton.
He's also absent.
Eric Knowles.
Here.
Christina Larson.
Here.
There we go. Megan Mensching.
Here.
And Bill Pratt.
Here.
Great. 2, 3, 4. So all three alternates are seated tonight. And then once Krista's eventually going to walk in like that, Krista Nielsen, here. Just say here. So we've got, that's what, 5, 8? Yeah, we have 8. Great. So first application, we have a regular meeting item for an 824 review. Mr. Tiger Mann here from the Department of Public Works to tell us about the Playhouse and Park Street parking lots with a new striping layout.
All right.
Floor is yours, Mr. Mann.
Thank you very much. Tiger Mann, Director of Public Works for the record. So as you mentioned, we're here to review a proposed new parking layout, striping layout for both the Park Street lot and the Playhouse lot. Reason for our coming before you is basically an 8-24 review. And in so doing, no municipal agency or legislative body shall widen any public way or substantially improve any municipally owned property until the proposal to take such action has been referred to the commission for a report. That's why we're here. This is the existing lots as they stand. Park Street lot currently has 124 spaces and the Playhouse lot currently has 55. The interesting thing to note is that the Playhouse lot, when it was originally designed, was designed with 8 by 17 foot parking spaces. So, you know, the
8 by 17?
8 by 17. That's correct. And when we went out there and measured, there were actually some of them are still that
Horse and
dimension.
buggy days?
Huh? Yeah, exactly. It's about in the 50s. Exactly. With the plan, it didn't scan very well, so I couldn't actually include that original plan for you. But yes, it was 8 by 17. I should mention that we brought this to the Parking Commission back in June, and they approved this layout. And this is the new proposed layout for both lots themselves. We're trying to increase circulation, so we've got 24-foot aisles throughout. Very similar design criteria to the Morse Court lot that Maria did prior. Excuse me. And so here we've got that, and the stalls will be increased to 9 by 18 throughout. We also were able to make the lot compliant from an ADA standpoint as far as the number of accessible spaces. So the Park Street lot will have 5 accessible spaces and the Playhouse lot will have 2. The unfortunate thing is that in order to put these layouts together, there'll have to be a loss of spaces. We don't have any more room in the lot. We are widening the lot slightly to the left or to the west side along Park Street. If you see in the picture, you can see there's a little bit of green area. We've already made way to actually, there's a telephone pole in that green space. And now we have work proposed with Eversource and utilities to place a pole along Park Street and move everything off of the lot so that we can actually widen the lot slightly to accommodate this layout itself. But the additional asphalt will be basically the other area will the other areas where you see where it's yellow striping hash marks will actually turn back to grass. So there's basically from a drainage standpoint, there's a net zero of increase in impervious area. So this is our overall thought. We've placed a couple of accessible spaces up by the Park Street exit, entrance and exit, across from Seminary Street. That way we have access down Park Street to Upper Elm Street and other areas, say the train station. And then we have some accessible spaces right in front of the existing staircase that leads across to down by White Buffalo. The proposal is to change those stairs into a combination stairs and ramp. And then if you look in the bottom of the page, you'll see that we put in an accessible path or an accessible route all the way down past two more accessible spaces in the Playhouse lot to the proposed ramp that the moment that we get one facility, Altice Optimum, off of one pole in that red square in the middle of the two lots, we'll be able to start our work. Contractor's already on board. Equipment's already here, materials already here, and we'll be starting that work on that ramp adjacent to the Playhouse, which will then help us with accessibility and access to Elm Street, and will also allow that larger area, that larger hashed area, to be a loading zone. So we're hoping to get trucks, some of the trucks up and off of Elm Street and into the Playhouse lot via the lower access road. We can't accommodate every truck. You know, a tractor trailer won't make those turns, but we sized it for the majority of the trucks that would actually be utilizing Elm Street.
So right now, that's a cut through, right? You can turn in from Park Street along the back there and
that's still
go
the proposal.
along, and you're crossing that new pathway by the ramp that you're putting in. Can you explain how the ramp is going to work?
The ramp itself is a switchback design in the embankment. So in the embankment between the parking lot and the access way, there's enough space for us to place a switchback ramp itself. There's about 50 inches of elevation change, so we need about 50 feet of run. So about 25 feet either side. We're proposing about 28 feet on either side to then be able to come down and across, and then anyone that's in a stroller or a wheelchair will exit the lot at the exact same location as someone with who's utilizing the stairs. And then the accessible route would be to come across that access way and then work their way down to the ramp by the Playhouse, or in between the Playhouse and La Penn-Catania.
So there will be a new ramp in there as well?
There'll be a new ramp in there. That's the ramp that we're proposing to start work on.
Ramp by others?
Ramp by others, yeah. That's but it's already been put out to bid. It's already been contracted, and contractors' materials and equipment are on site. We're just waiting for one pole to be moved, and we can start our work. The proposal there is to take the dumpster, the compactor and the dumpster that's in that area present, put it into the red square that's in between the Playhouse lot and the Park Street lot, move it over there, put it into a dumpster enclosure in that location, and then have an area for lay down and an area to build the ramp.
Okay.
Does the town have any ideas as to how to make up the lost parking slots?
We're hoping that a lot of these spaces weren't necessarily utilized because they were so small. So you had people going elsewhere. Now giving them a little bit larger, we're going to hopefully have that and a little bit better turnover itself. That is encompassing with the work that's on Elm Street at present, putting in new parking meters. We're hoping that that's going to help turn around turnover spaces on Elm Street, and this area up above will be a free parking, but only 3 hours itself. So you'll be limited to 3 hours. Then you'll have to leave the lot for at least an hour before you can come back. So all those measures we're hoping will help increase some turnover and then increase and take up for some of that lost spaces.
Mr. Mans, Commissioner Chris.
Sure.
The ramp between Le Penn-Quotidien and the Playhouse, it's now 2 stairs separated with a railing in the middle. Will there still be stairs?
There'll still be stairs, yes.
Okay, and so the ramp will be in the middle?
Ramp will be on the western side, adjacent, up against the Playhouse wall. So that'll be
Behind the Playhouse?
What, excuse me?
In the back of the Playhouse?
In the back of the Playhouse, yeah. It'll start on the back of the Playhouse. It'll be a switchback behind the Playhouse, and then another leg of it will come along the Playhouse down one section of that staircase. So one section of that staircase will now be ramp, and the other side will still be stairs.
And that's to access Elm Street for deliveries?
access Elm Street for all the parking that's back here and for Elm Street itself, yes.
One of the things we've seen with parking lots that are fairly large fields is the insertion of islands with some greenery and also trees and so forth, cut down to the heat, which is not being done here. What's the
We're increasing the green areas on the periphery, specifically around the Park Street lot. But in order to try to alleviate the loss of parking, we can't necessarily go forward with some additional islands and things of that nature. We're already losing 12 spaces. Our feeling was that we're bringing the lots more into conformity. Right now, I said they're striped 8 by 17, so we're going to get them to a 9 by 18, which is within the village guideline for the village district guidelines. But to go further, the loss of parking we felt at that point in time was too great.
has the town considered planting trees, for example, in that sloped area that goes the border between the two lots, it slopes down, or some other areas to at least take a bit of the edge off?
We certainly can. There are already trees parked in the embankment between the Playhouse lot and the Park Street lot. We put in several of 4 there a couple of years ago. And our thought is to then replant the embankment in between the access road and the Park Street lot itself. Right now, that's just basically grass area, but the thought is to replant that area with several trees. And then on the western side of the lot, to replant that entire buffer along Park Street itself.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can you talk to the, I guess, further down in your presentation, this section 6.24? I guess it's a waiver from the requirement of the 20-foot depth and to make these findings. So I don't know if you could discuss in terms of the rationale of how the design meets this.
Well, excuse me, the design, in our opinion, meets it. To get to the again, to try to get closer to conformity, we understand that the commission likes 9 by 20. We don't have the space in the area. And in order to get to a 9 by 20 space, we'd have to lose even more parking itself. So going to a 9 by 18, which used to be the standard for a long period of time, and is the standard in the district. One, we're finding that it's going to provide better vehicular access through and through, because we're going to get out of an 8-foot space to a 9-foot space, and then we'll have pure 24-foot lanes for travel. So that's going to improve the site circulation. Excuse me. And then we are trying to put in some additional landscaping buffers, like I mentioned to Mr. Chris, in that area. And then it will also be a pedestrian enhancement in the fact that now we'll have a ramp, a pedestrian ramp, and with a pedestrian access way, an accessible route from both parking lots to Elm Street, which is necessarily, that's their goal in the end. The Playhouse lot for its entirety has been an island into itself without an accessible route. This will actually help us gather towards that. It allows us to then move as part of the work to install the ramp in between the Playhouse and Lepenka to the end. This is part and parcel to that work.
Okay, thanks.
So we feel that that's, that helps get us to an approval to utilize the 9 by 18 and not go to the 9 by 20. As far as the POCD itself, in the section on enhanced community infrastructure and facilities, the statement is that residents use and rely on New Canaan's community facilities and infrastructure daily, making them a key contributor to quality of life. Community members identified road maintenance, improvements, and increasing capacity of existing infrastructure as important considerations for this POCD. And the enhanced community infrastructure and facilities theme was developed to address community concerns about long-term maintenance and ensure that future improvements align with community desires. We're doing just that. We're trying to increase the parking, try to make it a little bit more accessible and a little bit more desirable. Right now, we've got people that can't necessarily park in those spaces or won't park in those spaces. And this overall scheme should help us in that regard. And the other section under maintain and enhance community facilities and services, looking to the future, New Canaan will need to evaluate and prioritize maintenance or enhancement in community facilities. It's exactly what we're trying to do with this, is to try to enhance this. One, maintain it, two, enhance it. Once we're completed with the ramp installation in between Le Pen and the Playhouse, we'll be walking our way out of the area and repaving both the Playhouse lot and the Park Street lot, and then restriping it with this, this layout, but we didn't want to go forward without commission's approval on the 824.
Is the access way that's between the Park Street lot and the buildings to the south, is that town property?
The access way in between the Park Street lot and the properties is town property. That's correct. So they,
So you just looking at the image that you have here, there's a series of cars that are parallel parked there,
that's correct.
but we're not counting those in the overall count.
Those are counted in the overall count.
Oh, they are?
Yes, they are. Sorry.
So how many spots do we have along there?
About 7.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, so those were included in the 124 of the, we counted them inside the Park Street lot. I
Gotcha.
apologize, should have mentioned that for you.
And the new switchback ramp will be configured in such a way that it doesn't pinch when cars are parallel parked there, it's not going to pinch the opening.
No,
Mr. Mann, it's my assumption that with this new ramp that the sort of blockages we currently have on Elm Street, often with trucks stopping and delivering and often blocking people in and causing some traffic congestion, will be significantly reduced by this, is that you get them off, and that the idea is that will be a greater flow of traffic through arguably the most important shopping street in town. Is that part of the master plan here?
that is correct. So the first selectman met with business owners today to discuss the enhanced parking in the downtown. And then part of that was a spin-off meeting that I will have with the restaurants and others to show them where the new compactor will be, the new ramp. And then since they're the heaviest ones, the usage of the deliveries, get them to then tell their delivery trucks to come and use the back end of this area.
The compactor and the dumpster that will be in that red area, it's on land that's owned by the town, so it's rented to people. How does that work?
So basically it's on our property, and we utilize it for the town hall itself. So we
Okay.
pay a small portion of that fee towards it, and then they pay the rest. So they pay directly to the hauler itself, and we allow the compactor to be there. It used to be 7 dumpsters in the back of that lot. Then we changed it to 1 compactor and 1 dumpster. And it was a compactor for garbage and a dumpster for recycling. And the compactor for garbage became pretty ripe since it was only emptied about twice a week. So we switched them to a dumpster for garbage, and 2 dumpsters for garbage and a compactor dumpster for recycling. And that's the goal right now, is to move that over and do that exact setup. And the garbage is emptied 6 days a week. We haven't had a problem with smell or problems with any fluids leaking out with the new design or with the new thought. It's been about a year or more on it. And that's the thought, is to move everything over there and then open up that access way. So as you're coming through the parking lot, you don't have to walk past a couple of dumpsters and a compactor to get to the crown jewel, which is the 50-yard line of Elm Street. So the thought is it's going to be a much more enhanced, for anyone coming to town, be much more of an enhanced view or, look coming into town.
And there'll be fencing around it too?
It'll be enclosed on 3 sides, and there'll be a fence on the front of it. That's correct. And on the top, we're trying to make it so that you don't necessarily be able to look into it. We're removing the staircase that's in that area so that you won't be able to look into the dumpster itself from above into the enclosure.
Will it be locked?
Locked. Yes.
Because I know that there's a dumpster on Morse Court was used by marked by the mobile station, and often I know merchants have said they're paying for it and other people were dumping trash in it, and they were end up paying for other people's trash, and they weren't wild about the idea.
Now that we enclosed it, if we put a fence around it, we have a lock on that, and only the people that are paying to utilize those dumpsters have access to that. And then we have a camera on that as well to make sure that no one's hucking their garbage over the top of it. So we'll be doing the exact same thing here. We have cameras in the back of the Playhouse as well, so we can see exactly what's going on as far as garbage and whether or not it's overflowing. We need to have someone come out there and clean it. So the same situation will apply here.
Thank you, sir.
Since you're nesting that enclosure into that berm or that hillside, I'm assuming the three sides are gonna be like solid block or something?
Yes, they will.
And is there a height that you're thinking for the block?
Height that we're thinking for the block. I don't have that overall in front of me.
Can we make a recommendation?
It's about 6 to 8 feet. It's trying to be right at the top of the dumpster. I can't remember exactly what it was overall.
7 feet minimum would be good.
Okay.
Just prevents vision
Mhm.
from people walking in and seeing anything that's going on in the dumpster.
Thank you.
So 3 sides of block. Oh, and the dumpster, the compactor, will the compactor be relocated and reused or?
The compactor is going into that
Going in.
enclosure.
It will
Yes,
fit.
yeah. The thought is that we'll either go to a compactor and the 2 dumpsters or 2 compactors.
I have a question about the switchback, just to make sure I understand this. If I leave the White Buffalo and I go to that southwest corner, I have the option of either going straight up the stairs or continuing west to east and then switching where I'm going up and then switching back to the, that's the switchback,
Yes. You go east to west, west to east. coming
west to
from White-
east, east to
coming-
west.
Coming from White Buffalo. That's
But I
correct.
also have the option of continuing on that ramp also north instead of coming west. It looks like there's a jog at the easternmost edge.
That's the landing.
That's the landing.
That's the landing to the ramp. Yeah, there needs to be a 5x5 landing at the bottom of the.
So I can access that switchback from either the eastern side or the western side, or no?
No, just the eastern side.
So once I'm on that switchback, I go up
Go
and
up
I go up the other side. It's
Round,
one
right
way
round.
of,
Yeah.
one way of getting.
one way.
And then that's the landing. And then what is, and what is the large square at the southeast corner of this whole diagram? That big yellow with the 2 wings, that's the enclosure with the,
In this, all the way down at the bottom of the page on the far right.
yes,
So
far
inside-
right, bottom,
That's 2 accessible spaces.
2 accessible
2
spaces.
accessible spaces with the hash in between. 2 van accessible spaces with an 8-foot space in between.
2 van accessible spaces. And who do you think's going to use those 2 van accessible spaces?
We'll make anyone that's disabled because the ramp is right there.
Okay, so those are the handicap.
Those are the handicap
Spots.
spaces. That's correct. The lot doesn't have any at present. We need to have them, and we need to have them as close to the accessible route as possible. This is the best location for them, and the accessible route is right behind the cars, right across, and then into the ramp itself.
Okay.
I have a question actually for Sarah. Just in terms of the, I don't want to be a stick in the mud, but just in terms of the technicality of the waiver to the 18 feet. Could you explain to me how the waiver applies to a project like this that's located on a site with no residential and partially in a residential zone?
So my interpretation of that waiver is more towards new development projects. So like the application you're going to hear next is more where that waiver comes into play. What was done with the Morse Court lot last year was that, you know, in a sense, it wasn't even fully about being granted a waiver, because in theory they could go and put these 18 by 17 spaces back. Wouldn't need to get your permission to do that. So the applicability in this case, you know, it's a good formality that Tiger's here asking for that, but it's not really the situation in which this is really meant to apply.
So we're not acting on the request for a special permit, we're simply acting
No.
on, okay. 'cause
This
I'm-
is just for an 824 review of
Okay, 'cause-
restriping the lot. This is not a special permit. It hasn't been noticed as a special permit.
Okay, because then the language of 6.24 in the presentation is that not special permit text to reduce from a 20-foot to an 18-foot stall?
Yeah, so I would not go by that. This is again, just the 824
So
review.
in your,
Yeah.
in your perspective, the increase in size is just increasing or decreasing a non-conforming.
Correct.
Final question, revealing my ignorance, the ramp area, that stairway and walkway between Le Pain Quotidien and the Playhouse, that's town-owned property.
Town-owned property.
Okay, it's not an easement or anything you own.
There is actually an easement on that property before the town owned it. The town was able to get an easement across the property from our parking lot at the Playhouse lot to Elm Street. Then once the town acquired the property, the easement still stands with it, but it was basically an easement for ourselves,
It's owned by the town.
but it's owned by the town.
That's all I need to know. Thank you, sir.
Commissioners, anything further?
Just to further clarify, in order to get to the Elm Street access, you have, from the Park Street lot, you now have to go down the ramp stairs by White Buffalo instead of cutting over where the refuge area now is, right?
No, you can still utilize the area. It's just a question of we relocated, since we're taking out the stairs in that southeasterly corner of the Playhouse lot, the Park Street lot, and relocated the ramp. We then added an accessible route, but you could utilize the White Buffalo, or you can walk down the accessible route to. There's not much more of a distance between the two.
Yeah, I just meant to clarify that we are removing the stairs that used to cut diagonally.
Anything else, commissioners? Okay. Thank you, sir.
No, thank you.
There's no public input on this.
Correct.
Do we vote now?
Yep. Also, I know it had come up at a previous meeting. I did confirm with the town attorney, even with public hearing items, you can vote right away if you're prepared to on an application. So you don't have to wait until the end of the meeting now.
Okay. Anything further, Mr. Mann?
No, not at all.
Okay. Commissioners, do I hear a motion?
I move approval.
Second, anyone?
I'll second.
Is that Christina?
That was Megan. If I'm voting on this one.
Any conditions or any other further deliberation on this?
You can't put a condition on an 824.
That's right, I forgot. Yeah. Any further deliberation?
I think we should give a couple reasons, and I think the reasons are, I do think that it's consistent with what our POCD talks about in terms of improving public facilities. It obviously is unfortunate that we will lose some parking spots, but overall, I think that this will make the parking that we do have more usable and more safe and more compliant with our regulations.
Agreed.
Agreed. I also think there's been a lot of consideration made towards accessibility, but also the trash, which right now is pretty unpleasant to walk by. So I appreciate that was really well thought out.
This is Commissioner Chris, I would also note that it will, I think, increase public safety by getting the blockages of Elm Street by trucks and so forth, which I see as somewhat hazardous. And so the enhancement of public safety and traffic flow on a key street, I would see as a positive in many respects.
Fair enough. Anything further, commissioners? Okay, it's called to vote. Dan Radman, I vote yes. Krista Nielsen,
Yes.
John Chris,
Yes.
John Engel,
Yes.
Yes.
Knowles,
Yes.
Christina Larson,
Yes.
Megan Menching,
Yes.
and Bill Pratt.
Yes.
6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. Didn't want to go over. You're good to go.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mann. All righty. So the next application, there are two, this is a public hearing. There are two items to this. I'll read both of these items. It's a pretty big application. I would like to note for the public, both in the room and whoever might be on Zoom for this particular application on Locust Avenue. We will not be doing public comment tonight. This is the first of a series of hearings. We will be doing the presentation and some comments from the commission tonight, and then public comment we will take at the next meeting next month, just so everyone's aware. So item number 2, discussion and consideration of the request of Elliott City Regis Windward Development Incorporated to amend the zoning regulations dated June 16th, 2007, amended in July 7th, 2025. to amend section 4.6.d and 4.8.h to permit hotels and to provide various dimensional waivers for certain types of development in the business C zone. Complete copy of the proposed amendment on file and clerk, et cetera, et cetera. And then the second part of that is item 3, 39, 49, and 51 Locust Avenue. Upon application of Elliott City Reed as Windward Development, authorized agent for Two Corners LLC owner for a site plan and special permit approval pursuant to section 46D, 4.8.e, and 4.8.h to allow the construction of a hotel with accessory uses such as retail, office, and below-grade parking in the Business Z zone at 39 Locust Avenue, map T, block 73, lot 724, and 49 to 51 Locust Avenue, map T, block 73, lot 723. Team? Feel free to sit there and turn on the mics so you have full coverage. You guys have a very thorough application. I would ask if possible, to keep the presentation to about an hour, if that's possible. That'd be great.
You shut the mic off.
Yeah, press the mic to green.
I'm sorry.
Both on there, good.
Set up. Sorry about that.
While you're down there. You gotta join the Zoom meeting.
Yeah. I'm just kidding.
For the commissioners or others that are following along at home or on Zoom, I'm assuming you're going to be presenting the PDF that's called Public Hearing Presentation Final.
That's
Okay.
right. Yeah, we have it in PowerPoint presentation, but it's the exact same. I might need to plug back in. Sorry, just share my screen. Right. Excuse us for the delay, sorry. Yep.
Good evening. My name is Elliot Sidorides of Windward Development. And I'm here with my team.
John Sidorides of Windward Development. Andrew Sidorides, Windward Development.
I'm Dave Sullivan. I'm with SLR Consulting.
So I'm here on behalf of Two Corners LLC, the owners of 39, 49, 51 Locust Avenue. Our team is pleased to submit for your consideration a formal application of the combined properties 39 through 51 Locust Ave. Properties are located in the northeast section of New Canaan in the building zone C and comprise over 1 acre. Windward's proposal to redevelop this site employs, number 1, adaptive reuse principles. 2, it will maintain and implement substantial setbacks, which will promote light, air, and on-site parking, both above ground and underground, all of which we presented as a balanced form-based solution. The proposal is much like our Cherry Street revitalization of 1999, which will follow the same tenets of development. The result will strive to be an example of responsible development, architecture, and construction execution. Finally, the proposal will not only look inward, rather it will also look beyond its property lines, considering the unique character of this town, its pedestrians, businesses, and neighbors.
So next slide. First, we'd like to provide you with some context for the project by reviewing the existing conditions. This slide is an aerial showing the outline in red where the two parcels are located and the two buildings, 39 and 49 through 51. Next. This is the zoning map showing the same location in red located in a business C zone. It has adjacencies to retail B, business C, and business A. Next, we show the neighboring properties, and moving clockwise on the map on the upper left, we have 21 Forest, 32 Forest, 42 Forest, 50 Locust, 64 Locust, 65 Locust, 151 Cherry Street, 4 Cross Street, 174 Cherry Street, and 166 Cherry Street. This slide is an existing condition survey. And to really understand the proposal, first it's critical to understand how the site topography works, which we'll take you through now, starting at the western portion of the western lot. As you move towards the intersection at Locust, you start to gently slope upward. And as you move around the corner, you get to what is essentially the high point of our surrounding roadways, which is located at the curb cut accessing the surface parking area between the two buildings. Then as you move east, you slope down to the building entrance at 4951. And you'll notice in the upcoming photos that the sidewalk in this area is about 2 feet higher than the ground floor of that building. And as you move further east, you continue to slope down where you hit the curb cut that accesses the surface parking area to the east of 4951. And moving around to Cherry Street, you continue to slope down all the way to the corner of the property adjacent to the Baptist Church. Now, when you reach this point, you're approximately 20 feet lower than that high point I mentioned at the curb cut between the two buildings where the surface parking area is. So we've got curb cuts at 39 to enter the underground parking level on the west here. And you can see that underground parking plan on the image on the upper left. Andrew, if you could just zoom over there. This is underground parking for both buildings. The next curb cut is accessing the current covered parking area in 39. And then moving east, as we mentioned, where that high point is, curb cut accessing the surface parking between the buildings. The curb cut for the surface parking east of 4951. And the final one is located down on the Cherry Street level to access that underground parking for 4951. Next slide. So this is 39 Locust. It was built in 1982 and is approximately 16,000 square feet. It's a 3-story office building, and as we said, has surface covered and underground parking. As you move again clockwise around the building, there's a gentle slope up towards the corner of Locust, and you can see you're passing by the entrance to that underground parking area. At this corner, we feel this currently marks an end to a pleasant pedestrian experience as you turn from Forest Street onto Locust Avenue. When you turn the corner, image on the upper left, you're sloping up to that high point I mentioned, which is located approximately where that white van is parked. Then we'll move to 49. Well, actually, those two images are the other facades of the building, and that's where the surface parking area is. Next. 4951 was built in 1973 and is approximately 20,000 square feet. It's a 3-story office building and again contains surface and underground parking. Starting with the image on the lower right, this is the current entrance to the building. You may notice that the ground floor level is actually hidden slightly from this wall and planted area, but it's about 2 feet lower than the sidewalk level here. The entrance to the building currently is actually at the second level of the building. Then as you move to the image left of that, you can see the east face of the building and the surface parking, which extends roughly 65 feet from that facade out to Cherry Street. Then as you move around to Cherry Street, which are the images on the top there, you will notice the grade differential that we mentioned previously. This grade change exposes clear aesthetic issues for us, and we believe for our town as well. And the last thing I'll point to in these images is the image on the upper left. You'll notice how one perceives the 4951 building from across Cherry Street, in that you're seeing approximately 2 levels of building above the underground parking level. But as you saw from the other images, it's 3 stories. Next slide. So as it relates to our objectives, we're proposing a master plan balanced form-based redevelopment of both sites with the following objectives and to be consistent with stated POC goals, strategies, policies, and actions. We're aiming to provide mixed uses in this part of downtown. We feel like there's a lack of mixed-use buildings with ground floor uses that are needed to promote economic activity and vibrancy and engage members of the community and visitors. We feel the town lacks lodging options desired by both residents and businesses. For 4951, we're proposing a 40-key hotel with ground floor F&B connected to an outdoor patio and roughly 600 square feet of new retail space down on Cherry Street. For 39 Locust, we're proposing 4,600 square feet of new ground floor retail and office space, replacing that covered parking area, and proposing 8 extended stay hotel keys on the 2nd and 3rd floors combined. This is an adaptive reuse project, as Elliot mentioned previously. We're aiming to improve the architecture of both buildings, and we're aiming to improve the pedestrian experience, continuing from Forest Street and connecting around to Cherry Street. Next slide. So in this plan, what we're showing here is that most of the density added to the site will be on top of or within the existing building footprints and not against our neighbors or property setbacks. So for example, the additional retail and office infill within the covered parking area on 39 Locust. The next one would be the 4th floor that is above and step back from the existing roof on 4951. And finally, the 600 square foot retail space within the underground parking level. Now, in addition to these, we have some additions outside of the existing footprint that aim to scale these existing structures down to the pedestrian scale. For example, we have a small 1-story addition on Forest Street. We have a 1-story addition on the north face of 4951 for our admin area. Then we have a lobby and landmark tower, also on the north side, as well as a porte cochere that helps to scale the mass of the building down to the pedestrian level. You can also see that we're incorporating town standards for our sidewalks and parking areas. We're utilizing bump outs for the street parking areas, which we feel will also create a more spacious and pleasant pedestrian experience.
So let's start from Forest Street and take a look at the before and after shots of what exists now, and the large Zelkova tree, which is hiding most of the 39 locust, actually has a round fire escape tower, internal fire escape tower, and then a fairly monolithic nondescript, several geometries happening, an attempt to deal with the corner lot when the building was being built. Our solution here is to add some one-story structure, some balconies that try to correct the geometry from both views, and play with the fenestration of the building. The underground garage will have a secure door to it. It won't be opened. And then as you travel towards Forest and Locust, the sidewalk will be widened. And what you see in front of that is a handicap ramp that engages the first floor of 39. And then between that ramp and the new stair, next slide, if you zoom in on that, you'll see actually the system where the staircase wraps around the round portion of the building. And on the opposite side, you see the ramp, the new handicap ADA ramp, goes around the planter and a flowering tree, which will be, I believe, a Quonset cherry in the middle. As you go down the street and the decline, you'll see that the infill of the parking becomes retail and office. And that will be either accessible via the stair system that I talked to you about or directly from the street, depending on how that gets broken up. The ivy that you see there will be growing up to the steel canopy. And then above that will be the extended stay units, second and third floor. There's some Juliet balconies that we're applying, obviously new windows and cornices and so forth. The ginkgo trees that are there now will be used in some fashion because they're not messy, they're male, and we would like to utilize those, transplant those. The large tree, obviously, in the corner is going to go. Next slide, please. This is a shot that looks back up towards Forest Street. You see a couple things happening here. As we left that building, between those two buildings is our main entrance, the vehicular exit entrance. We're eliminating a curb now in front of the Locust, or the first Locust building, 39. And you start to see what the porte cochere does to the pedestrian experience. We're attempting to engage that sidewalk and draw people in or just as a visual point of interest. It will be pleasant to walk by there, even if they're not going to the hotel. Beyond that, you will see that's a three-sided, obviously, open structure covered. And beyond that, on the left, you see a patio terrace that will be a cafe, extension of the restaurant, a sitting area outside, and another tree, which we didn't show here because it would have blocked the elevation that you currently see behind it. In this picture or rendering, you'll see the top floor, which is a continuous spandrel glass. The structure will be hidden by panels of glass so that it will look continuous and be juxtapose the materials that we're using on the face of the building. Next slide, please. As you continue to descend and hit the corner of Cherry Street, this is an important piece because it shows the distances that we are taking advantage of and the setbacks. And it does two things. The first thing it does is it provides a gateway to the town that is not a wall that extends to the property lines, but it's a receiver, and it also has a quality that provides you with a landmark as you come into the town. It starts to scale the buildings down, the office buildings down to a pedestrian level, and as you descend the topography of the street, the building also descends, and that's the idea. So as the main building, as you see it, is set back 65 feet from Cherry Street, that becomes your next step, basically. Next slide. So this slide shows the actual grade difference that John was explaining before, from the high point to the low point of this site, which encompasses several hundred feet from Forest Street to the Baptist Church. That is where kind of the gash in the earth is rearing its ugly head. And the unfortunate recipient of that was the Baptist Church. So what we sought to do was to create a subterranean or a retail space under the deck, small, but scaled in a way that wouldn't compete, but it would add a vernacular or contribute to a vernacular to the Cherry Street and beyond towards East Avenue. The small church is on a plinth. It always was higher at that point. So that was the reason why we elected to take advantage of that setback, but use what was there so that we would respect that building.
Okay, now I'll just take you through some of the floor plans. This is 4951 Locust ground floor plan. You can see the new additions that we mentioned. And if you want to just point to the lobby area and the admin space below it, those are the additions we mentioned. We will have a library space, conference room, an approximately 1,800 square foot restaurant with an outdoor dining patio, and various rooms down below, which will be a manager's suite. Next slide. This is representative of the second and third floor. These suites range from about 500 to 420 square feet. They're fairly spacious. Each bathroom has a tub and a shower. And what we really wanted to do here was promote a level of flexibility. As you can see in the corner units, you have the option via a door to a vestibule area. You have the option of sharing both units or having each of them be private. This was done on each of the four corners, as you can see, where the yellow portion juts into the blue area. The next plan is the penthouse level. These are smaller rooms. These are around 300 to 350 square feet. And we tried to utilize that same level of flexibility with the same design move as we did with the level below, but with every room. This is the next slide. This is 39 Locust ground floor. We have our entrance on the top left-hand side of the page with a ramp and a staircase that mimics the curve of the fire stair, entering a lobby space, and then the division between our office space and retail space, infilling the current covered parking on that level. Then above that ground floor, this represents the top 2 levels where there will be 4 suites on each level. These will be much larger. These are our extended stay units. They're between 1,000 and 1,200 square feet. Each of the units will have 2 bedrooms, a full kitchen, a dining area, and living area. And again, in the units that are located on the bottom left-hand side, suite 1 and 2, we're trying to promote a level of flexibility where that 2-bedroom unit could be turned into a 4-bedroom unit. It could be utilized. Someone could take suite 1 and utilize suite 2 as a office temporarily and have guests stay in the other 2 bedrooms, as one example.
So I'm going to transition a little bit just from, the project vision to mechanically how this could become a reality. So this slide's just meant to outline the approvals process from our standpoint. So the first of which is the text change requests, one of which is hotel being permitted as a use in business C zone subject to receiving special permit. Hotel is a defined term right now. It doesn't exist in any zone. We're not exactly sure why, but it is a defined term right now. So that's section 4.6D was where that would apply. The second of which relates to the building height exceeding 30 feet and rising up to 4 stories in business C, subject to receiving a special permit and meeting additional criteria as determined by yourselves, the commissioners. One thing I would note here, which will become obvious in the subsequent slides, is that this framework is something that's actually already exists in the retail B and the business B zones and has been utilized for different developments. So we thought it was actually quite well crafted and helps to allow for a form-based approach for unique sites like ours. The second prong of that is just specific to our site, having that basement level and that severe topography change. And that's making sure the basement level is not counted against us as a story in order to enliven the streetscape and create the retail space, continue the pedestrian experience. So that's a very integral part of our proposal. So that's, again, you'll see on the subsequent slides how those 2 things work together. And that exact text actually is another thing that already exists in the retail B zone as a framework. So subsequently, if the commissioners were to approve of text changes like those, these special permits would then be required for a hotel in business C, and also, again, for the height as in above 30 feet and up to 4 stories. One thing to stress, 39 Locust will not have, there's no proposal for a 4th floor for that, because we think for 49 to 51, it is contextual. It's less so for 39. So that's very intentional why we took that approach. And the other part of this, there is an existing special permit criteria that we also have to meet for the Portco share. There's an encroachment over the building line, a very marginal encroachment, which John is going to speak to later graphically, so you'll be able to see that. So we would have to get a special permit for that as well. Again, the next part of it would be a site plan application just for the approved uses, be it the retail and the office spaces that we're contemplating. And lastly, for the additional requests, this will come at the end. We'll talk about this more at the end of the presentation, but as conceived, our current project is about 700 square feet over the allowed FAR for our combined sites. So when we were doing our diligence, we discovered that there is a very narrow strip of land along Cherry Street, about 5 feet wide, that abuts 49 to 51 Locust. And it was deeded from the prior owner to the town in 1975. We're not aware of why that happened. But in any event, not only do we want it not only are we asking the town to deed it back to be compliant with FAR, but also to control the pedestrian and landscaping improvements that we're contemplating on Cherry Street. So we don't see a value for it for the town right now, and I think the pictures will illustrate that. But we want to work with the town and solicit their feedback, started that process to understand what the issues may or may not be. So we'll show that later on, but just as an overview. As it relates to the text change specifically, these slides will show anything in red is additional text that we're proposing, anything in black is existing. So for section 4.6D, hotel is a permitted use, obviously very simple, just the hotel is added for that. And then for maximum building height, as discussed, there are 2 footnotes, 4 and 5. 4 is for the height, and 5 relates to the basement level that we discussed. One thing to note here, just to reiterate, footnotes 1, 3, and 4 basically have the exact same language. The heights and the stories vary, but the framework is almost identical. So we tried to leverage what we thought was actually a very smart approach to unique sites. So that was the thinking behind this. That first note is, again, to allow up to 30 feet or above 30 feet and up to 4 stories, provided the commission shall make affirmative findings of the following items. One of it is a significant community benefit, whether that be incorporation or consolidation of 2 parcels into a meaningful master plan. Obviously, we feel strongly we are trying to accomplish that. Excellence in design, that's another item we feel we're working towards. Meaningful design solutions. I would say this is in many ways one of the most important things for the topography. We're trying to address it in a smart way that is respectful and not just block and massing along the perimeters of the property. And then it could be other meaningful public amenities, one of which that we inserted here because we personally feel strongly about it as a planning ethos is setbacks, especially on corner lots like these. We think that has a real value for light air and community benefits. So whether it be one or all of these, the commission would have to find these to be achieved from the development. Then the increased building height would promote mixed use with residential or other uses on the upper floors. Again, this mirrors exact language. The only thing that we adapted here was just to say that meet the needs of the town of New Canaan. I think the purpose there is just to say whether it be residential or otherwise, there are evolving needs always, especially in more recent times. So we're trying to just create a framework that is smart for that. And then lastly, C and D work together. I would say one is making sure the heights are contextual with not only neighbors, that's C, but also contextual with the other buildings in business C zone, of which essentially all but 1 or 2 are large scale office buildings with underground parking. So they're effectively the exact same form of building for all of these sites in business C. The second part of this for the basement is just that if it's dedicated primarily to storage or non-living space, then it shall not be counted as a story, provided that 30% of the basement level area is located a minimum of 3 feet below average grade. That's for this, again, this is for 49 to 51 Locust. Required residential parking, of which we obviously are not, this is not a residential proposal, and one of the commissioners had raised this. So, we certainly could remove that to make it more appropriate for this development. But in any event, residential parking or other parking is concealed underground, obviously screening the garage and adding the retail to try to achieve that. C, again, this is just for non-residential parking requirements, which understanding it's not really applicable for our site, but just wanted to raise it because I know the commissioners made a comment about it. And then most importantly, D, this entire point for the basement level doesn't exist without first achieving the prior findings. So this was the dynamic between these 2 points. And then just to transition specifically on the special permit application, just to not repeat ourselves, that really the purpose of the following slides were simply meant to show how we're trying to follow the direction that you all have laid out for us and others in the POCD. So we're really just going to highlight that just to avoid repeating ourselves on a lot of the points that were made by John and Elliot thus far. So John's just going to briefly talk about.
Yeah, so hotel as permitted use, I spoke about this in the pre-application meeting, so I'm not going to get too far into it, but the map on the right shows the hotels of New Canaan, or what once were, aside from the Roger Sherman, which still exists, obviously. You have the Maples Inn, which was directly adjacent to the Roger Sherman. And then you had 3 downtown locations, the Birdsall, the Melba, and the Ardsley. The 3 former downtown hotels totaled about 70 keys, and the Maples Inn had about 39.
And just to piggyback on that, I think, obviously, as we were doing our diligence in acquiring these sites, we had been looking for sites that would be adequate for a hotel use and, a mixed use with hotel. And I think these sites were very interesting to us in our due diligence. And I think since then, we already had confidence in the execution, but we've had a lot of local businesses and organizations approach us saying that they have legitimate needs to expand or accommodate their operations. That right now they're telling us that they're sending people outside of town, which doesn't do our local businesses, whether it be retail, restaurant, or any other retail use, any favors. And I think we have a lot of very interesting organizations in town, whether it be Carriage Barn, Grace Farms, Silver Mine Arts Center. I mean, there are a lot of things here that, while they may not be in New York City, there are things here that are very interesting cultural institutions, and those people come to visit them and they leave, which is unfortunate because I think there's a real argument to be made to keep them here and let them enjoy New Canaan comprehensively. So that's kind of has been our thinking with the hotel. And just lastly, some POCD excerpts, support ongoing cultural events and expansion efforts. Talked about that, increasing foot traffic and in ground floor uses that engage the community. Elliot and John touched on that. Zoning flexibility to allow for those mixed uses. Collaborating with the Chamber of Commerce, who I think they've helped educate us on a lot of the business needs in town. So I think Laura Budd's has been really helpful in that capacity. So we thank her for educating us. And then supporting alternative modes of transportation. The idea being that if someone's going to drive or take a train or a car, or whatever it may be, they'll still be able to do that, no problem. But once they get there, benefit of having the downtown hotel is that we want them to walk as much as possible downtown and enjoy the town. So that's, again, I think we're trying to stay consistent with the POCD in that capacity.
And these are just images of the hotels that no longer exist. The Melba, the Ardsley Inn, the Birdsall House, and the Maples Inn. But we touched on that in the pre-application, so I'm not going to get into too much detail there.
And this slide again, the purpose of this is really just to say that for the height relief that we're seeking in the basement classification, we're looking at this as a balanced form-based approach, like Elliot had said. And the real purpose of this slide, to avoid repeating ourselves, is just when we looked through the POCD and really tried to see the direction of where you all are thinking and guiding folks to think about planning, we came across adopting form-based code, encourage flexibility in new development opportunities, consider building setbacks, limit structures greater than 4 stories. I think we start to see a path, and frankly, until we got really deep into the weeds of the POCD, we didn't know we'd be consistent in every way, and we're not going to be consistent in every way. But I think what we found is that we're trying to emulate a formula that you guys have started to outline for folks. So that's the thinking. And Elliot's just going to lightly talk about this one particular new image, just to give additional context, as you've already seen some of the others.
And I'll be brief. So this image kind of zooms out a little bit to show our neighborhood, in showing from East Avenue going to the Baptist Church and wrapping our site up to Forest Street, you'll see the size of the office buildings across the street. That building height will be higher than what we're proposing on the additional partial story on 49. It's certainly going to be harmonious with that building. It will be harmonious with 39. And if you look at 21 Forest and its density and height, it certainly will be in keeping and respectful there, and an improvement, obviously, at the end of Forest Street. The other side of it, as you come down, obviously, you have the Baptist Church, and you have the buildings across the street from Cherry Street. One is they're one-story structures. You know, we don't know if those will change. We don't know what the future will bring there. There's an office building at the corner, but it just gives you a little bit larger picture of the loop now that we're trying to create to connect that Forest Street pedestrian experience all the way around that block. This is the same slide that we showed you again with our last move in terms of trying to be sensitive to the lowest point in the church and possibly influence what will happen or may happen across the street. We certainly don't think that's going to detract from its value or its possible example or future moves.
I believe in the pre-application, we were asked to study loom and shadows and light and air as a result of our proposal. So we've submitted that in this drawing or in this series of renderings. The top row is taken at the winter solstice, so when the sun's at its lowest point. And we've provided screenshots of times from left to right at 9 a.m., 12 p.m., 3 p.m., and 4 p.m. 4 p.m. is essentially everything's in shadow, but on the bottom row, this is summer solstice, and the times here are 9 a.m., 12 p.m., and 4 p.m. And we think that there is ample light provided to adjacent properties as a result of the setbacks that we maintain. Okay, building line encroachment. So the proposed porte cochere at 4951 encroaches over the building line. We're not aware of what the significance of that encroachment is, but would love to hear comments from you all. And we obviously feel that the porte cochere has a value to the project as it scales down the building to the pedestrian level and sort of engages the sidewalk. So let's just jump to the image. On the proposed survey on the left, this is just a visual of showing what the encroachment is. The building, you can see the building line. Andrew, you want to point to it?
Yeah, I'm going to.
Yeah. And the porte cochere encroaches past.
When you're saying building line, you're referring to the front yard setback.
No, I'm not.
No, it's this line.
It's a different line.
You see the cursor, Dan?
Yeah.
Right here.
Yep.
They did not, this survey does not show the front yard setback, so you're subjected to both in commercial zones.
Gotcha.
And we'll show you this image will hopefully help.
Yeah, so the image on the right was for a different purpose, but you can see here both of what you're asking for. The property line, the 6-foot setback line, and the building line. Okay, so that's just for reference. This is just to address the comment we got in the planner's memo where our roof overhang is encroaching into the 6-foot setback.
The blue line.
The second blue line to the right. Again, we feel that it's not impactful to any neighboring properties and is valuable for pedestrians and visitors. But if If that's an issue, I've shown in red that we can pull back the overhang of the portico share to comply with the 6-foot setback. And just shift it back to 6'1" away from the property line setback, or from the property line, I should say. Parking analysis. The properties currently have 112 surface and underground parking spaces combined. The total will be reduced to 98 combined spaces, and based on our calculations, we need 94 parking spaces required for the proposed uses. All right, David,
My turn.
you're up.
Again, for the record, my name is David Sullivan. I'm a professional engineer and I manage the Community and Mobility Planning Group for SLR. We conducted a traffic study. The first slide here shows generally the scope of the study, how we process through this. The first thing we do is look at existing conditions. That usually includes things like traffic counts, crash data analysis, things of that nature. We then conduct an access review. One of the main features there is to look at sightlines, of course. And in this case, they're all existing driveways. So, but we still feel it's important to understand that. We do an analysis of what's being developed, the trip generation analysis, and I'll go through some details on that. We then conduct a level of service analysis to determine what the operational characteristics are. And we look at the characteristics both under conditions where this project doesn't come to fruition and the condition where it does. And that's traditionally what is known as the traffic impact, the changes of the findings from those two analyses. And then we have a series of recommendations that we do. A couple of points on the existing conditions. We did our traffic counts. We did them in early June. We kind of rushed out to get them because we wanted to make sure we got them when school was in session. We thought that was important. So we have a good time of year when we did our traffic counts. We counted morning commuter peak hour, afternoon commuter peak hour, and again on Saturday midday peak hour because of the mixed use here. We wanted to make sure we're covering all the peaks. We did look at 5 years worth of crash data along the site frontage and the study intersections. Essentially we found most of the crashes out here, over 3/4 of them were fender benders or property damage only crashes. There were no serious injury. There was some minor injury suspected, which was the remainder of those accidents. Our study area, you can see the numbers are kind of small there, but there's 3 public intersections. The intersection of Forest with Locust Avenue and Cherry Street, and East Avenue and Cherry Street were kind of bracketing the intersections that would get traffic from this site. We also analyzed the existing driveways. We analyzed them all, but we only counted 2 of them during the morning and afternoon peak hour, and those are the driveways to 4951. 39 was unoccupied, so there was no sense counting those driveways for existing conditions because we know what the answers would be. So that's a quick summary of the existing conditions. If we go to the next slide, I think the next important thing here is to talk a little bit about the trip generation. And on the left is a summary of what we analyzed, and you can see we have the mixed uses in there. We did not take credit for interrelationship or shared use of the mixed uses, but we just stacked them on top of each other. So we have the, on 4951, we have the hotel trips. We have the restaurant, which would be interior and part of the hotel property, but nonetheless, we analyzed it as a separate standalone restaurant in this particular case. And then the retail plaza, which is downstairs on the lower level. So we used Institute of Transportation Engineers statistics to come up with the trips that would be generated in that case. At 39 Locust Avenue, we use general office for the commercial space and the all suites hotel, 8 rooms. We again generated those. All told, on 4951, we estimate in the morning peak hour 37 trips in and out total. On the afternoon peak hour, that number goes to 44, and on Saturday it goes to 54 because of the commercial uses in restaurants. At 39, those numbers are much lower. 10 trips in the morning peak hour, 10 in the afternoon, and again 7 in the on Saturday. So the charts on the right, I think, were important, and these charts were not in our report, although we did have a little bit of a narrative on them. But the first thing we did on the small table on top at 4951 Locust, we looked at what was already being generated there from the uses that were in there in June. And then we compared that to what we're generating from all of the uses. And you could see that, you know, for instance, in the PM peak hour, the 44 trips that we're generating, it's really 18 new trips from what's already out there today. So that was one point of reference we had. The other point of reference was, what if this does not get approved and it gets re-tenanted under its current uses? So that's what that bottom table shows you. And we looked at, again, AM and PM in this case, and we used ITE estimates for those the vacant land uses in these buildings today.
Can I just ask quickly why on this table on the right, it doesn't have Saturday peak hour?
Because the comparison on Saturday with the office space that's out there today, it would be, you know, it's very low.
Like zero, so zero, essentially.
Essentially zero, yes.
Okay, so just so I'm just following, right? It would go from like a 0 to a 54 or a 0 to a 61.
Isn't zero, but it's, you know,
2 to, so it's okay. So
Yeah, it would be-
I'm just trying to figure out what the
office
increment is.
uses would be very,
Okay, thanks.
very low on Saturday. So on the AM and PM, we do the estimates for ITE for the buildings, and then we compared them to the ITE estimates in the slightly shaded area that we made for this report. And you can see, you know, there's, you know, if you split it down between ins and outs, some go up a little, some go down a little. But bottom line is, in the morning, you have essentially the same or potentially a little bit less traffic, and in the afternoon, essentially the same or maybe a little more traffic. Again, these are industry statistics. So this is, you know, but I typically don't like using numbers like 3 and 7 and things like that, but it's just to demonstrate that, you know, this is not a development that's coming in and generating a ton of new traffic. So I think when I get to the next slide, you'll see that that's basically what we found when we did the impact analysis. So that was, that's up there now, and this is a table that is from our report, and this is the level of service analysis, and you see a bunch of letters there, and you may have heard this 100 times already from other consultants, but the level of service is like school grades, where level service A is very good, and level service F is not so good. And peak hour in downtown areas, we like to keep things at level of service D or better for those peak hours. And what we found, if you look quickly through the chart, is we only have one movement at one time period that's even level of service D. The rest of them are A's and B's and C's. So we have very good levels of service. And the other thing that this table points out is we're not changing or diminishing any of those levels of service. So that you know, sometimes you have the self-fulfilling prophecy when you do the first part of the analysis. So we would have expected these types of analyses results. Just knowing that, number one, it's not generating a whole lot of new traffic. So we don't have a traffic impact, but we do have recommendations. One of the first things we did when they asked if we'd like to do a traffic study for them, we came and we met them on site. And we walked around, and we talked a lot about the pedestrian environment and what kind of improvements could we do out here that was a benefit, because most of the recommendations are that are benefiting the public realm here. So I'll go through them, starting on the lower right, some of the things that the offsite is showing. On the lower right, the first thing we point out is curb extensions. Now that all curb extensions, the biggest benefit of them is when you have breaks for driveways, it allows the driver to come up more comfortably to see around parked cars. And parked cars are not considered a sightline restriction, but if you could make their presence less objectionable, you try to do that. And in this case, we did that with bump outs, not only here, but along Locust. And in fact, on Locust, we even moved out, we reset the curb so that parking is a little bit further in, but from the existing curb, but the actual curb is further into the road. So it improves the alignment through there. There's a funny jog if you were to drive it today, and we took that funny jog out, and now we have nice smooth 12-foot lanes in each direction, right through this whole area from the stop signs to the signal up at 123. The next thing we did, and this is kind of a function of doing the curb extensions, because we took the curb extensions all the way to the intersection with Locust, and that allowed us to do a couple of things. Most importantly, we were able to shorten that crosswalk and realign it a little bit to make it more direct, but more importantly, shorter, because now the curb is further into the street. But what that also allowed us to do is take the stop bar and move it up a little bit. There's some discussion about the grades there. So the further you get up the grades, even if it's just a couple of feet further with the stop bar, it improves your sight line. That, in combination with some regrading on that corner, that's part of this project, improves that sight line. I don't want to say dramatically, but it does improve the sight line dramatically. Would make me feel like we're taking bad to good, but it's marginal now and it's improving. So
just to be clear on this drawing, the red line, the red dashed line that surrounds the perimeter of both sites, that's the existing curb line.
correct. Yes.
So moving from west to east, looks like you're pushing the curb line and the cars further into the drive lane. The next section, you're pulling them a little back from the drive lane.
Yeah. But keep in mind, there's parking out there today.
Oh, no, I
So-
understand that.
So the drive lane isn't really defined, but if you use the car as the projection of those bump outs, the cars would actually be a little bit further out because the inside of that parking lane is actually pushed a little bit in toward the site. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
I'm going around the counterclockwise here, right? I touched on the regrading in the corner. That improves visibility not only for the folks on Cherry Street, but it also improves the visibility coming out of the easterly driveway. As we continue to the west, we show more bump outs. We show protected parking, enhanced pedestrian areas. Another thing that when we get to the westerly driveway, another thing that the bump out does is it allows a nice turning radius to get into the porte cochere area for pickup and drop off. So, you know, having that flatter radius or not, or just having it straight at the curb line, the projection of the radius is smaller. So this gives you a visual of a larger radius and kind of guides your turns a little bit better. So, you know, that's a movement we thought was important that we make that as easy and smooth as possible. Some other things as we go around the corner. Very important. One of the driveways we're closing. So now there's 3 driveways on Locust and we're closing one of them. So a 50% or 33%, depending on how you look at it, reduction in curb cuts through there. More curb extensions, and we get to that last thing. I guess I point out that, you know, in doing all of this, the ADA requirements and the ADA accessible design treatments will all be upgraded through here with proper ramps and things like that. So all in all, it's a nice improvement. Not traditionally what we see when we're doing traffic impact studies. Usually we're, you know, adding turn lanes or tweaking signals, but in this case, we got to focus on the vulnerable users and pedestrians and things like that, and make some improvements. So the last thing I'll say, and then I'll be quiet. We did look at your review considerations in section 6.8 of traffic management. I won't go through them all, but item 1 talks about a lot of considerations. We've addressed all of those in our report, and you should be able to see that. So these types of things where they relate to this site, we've addressed them, and you know, things like stacking lanes and signalization, you know, things like that don't necessarily apply, but where they do apply here, we did look at them. Point 2 has some specifics. One about the volume capacity ratio of 0.8, and we don't have any 0.8s. The peak hour by 10% or more. We looked at the study intersections, the 3 public intersections, and there is no 10% increases there. And there is, I pointed out, the 1 level of service D, but it's not being created by this project. So I think that's, from my perspective, that's a wrap.
Before we lose you, you mentioned you're reducing the number of curb cuts along Locust?
Yes.
Where the covered parking was for 39, there was an exit right in the middle.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's gone now, so that becomes parking space.
Gotcha. And have you reviewed the proposed curb modifications, parking modifications with the town engineer?
We have not.
We're in the process of working with our engineer, S.E. Meyer, preparing a review for them that will be here in about a week, and that'll be submitted to them.
Okay.
So Public Works has not provided comments yet because they're waiting for scaled drawings.
Yeah,
so they
no,
can-
understand.
yeah.
So we'll have the drawings
Or the
and we'll
next
hopefully have comments by next meeting.
That's the hope. Yep.
I'll just ask on top of that, have you considered anything on Forest Street, that entrance, in terms of a gate or a stop sign? You know, I think I brought this up last time. Anybody who goes up and down Forest Street knows how much of a mess it is. And
So in terms of the gate,
to prevent people from trying to go in, you know, if you're a hotel, you know, coming to this hotel and you've never been here before and you don't know, you know, much about New Canaan. Oh, parking space, hotel. I'm going to turn right in.
prevent you from going down into the underground.
Right.
That's not going to be signaled as a hotel. That's not the entrance of the hotel. So that's not going to be identified at all. it'll only be given to, there'll be fobs given to the users of that building only as they stay. So it's not going to be an open-ended, it's going to be controlled.
So will there be some type of gate?
Yes, there'll be a door, actually not a gate, but it'll be
A roll down?
a roll
door
down
at the building
electronic
line?
door that's going to be shut, not the way it is now. It's a barbed wire or a wired fence at the bottom.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I'm just, again, people who do not know that entrance and, you're going to design a building, that two buildings that look kind of cohesive, they might think that that might be an entrance. So
Absolutely.
something on the plans, when you come back next time, just to show that, that's not going to be, you're doing some sort of preventative barrier or gate that's going to deter people from trying to go down that way.
I had a question, if I may, for the traffic, Mr. Chairman.
Mhm.
In a hotel, it's like a hospital, it's 24/7. You have to be staffed all the time. You have plumbing problems at 2 a.m, you got to send someone out and fix it, so there's these traffic at odd hours. When I look at the peak hour versus an AM and PM, again, I'm not sure what your shifts are going to be. Is it a 6 to 2? 2 to 10, since you're going to have people mostly in the morning as far as housekeeping staff, because you're going to turn the beds. And so you have a lot of traffic then. You'll have, I guess, 3 meals at the restaurant? 2?
It's, I mean, obviously this is this well into the, okay, go ahead.
I don't know.
So the hotel, the majority of the hotel traffic is generated by the patrons. So the staff is typically there before the peak patron arrivals and departures in the morning. And likewise, they're there in the afternoon when there's the activity. So we, as a matter of fact, rather than try to parse the employees versus the patrons, we just assume they're all patrons because those all need to be valeted, and they would have a bigger impact being valeted than just a employee would. So that's one thing. The staffing for the restaurant, we generated the traffic for the restaurant separately. So we, that restaurant, the characteristics we use, you could take that restaurant and put it all by itself on a separate lot. And that's the traffic that would be generated there. So all those things are factored in. They're based on other restaurants of that size and that style. So that's why we use those statistics. Some restaurants will generate slightly less, some slightly more, but for design purposes, those are the numbers we would use.
You said style, and it brings up the issue of what kind of restaurant you're going to have. Some people you linger 2.5 hours. Some you're in and out in 45 minutes. So I'm not sure exactly how you're merchandising the restaurant and whether you expect this to have people, let's say, from who are not guests, utilize the restaurant, and how that affects your traffic study.
Right. So let me answer a little bit of the first question, which I think where you were going. The valet portion, as people drop their vehicles off, we're looking to keep those above ground parking areas as empty as possible. So when the guests come in and the staff, those cars will be brought down underneath on the Cherry Street side.
Okay.
That'll also have a gate, and any service people who are going to come for, emergency issues, plumbing, thereabouts, they'll be parking below that area underground on the Cherry Street side. That's primarily going to be used for staff, and because we have elevators down there that can bring us up without having them go through the entrance lobby. So we're trying to organize that traffic that way, so that the upper decks are really for visitors and people who are coming by themselves to the restaurants independently, or on 39's case, it would be for the office users.
So is the restaurant to be like a diner type of operation for just breakfast and lunch, or 3 meal?
Yeah, I think the thought preliminarily is certainly we'll have breakfast. no question, and dinner, no question. The lunch might be maybe an abbreviated menu. So really, I think the ethos that's important here to understand is that we don't necessarily see this as a destination restaurant, because the whole point of what we're trying to do is to get people to solicit the businesses in town, of which there are many new restaurants that are very good restaurants that didn't exist. So certainly we're gonna have a bar in an area for people to, have a nice, have an appetizer or just a very simple meal. But at this point, we're not seeing this as some, destination restaurant. Certainly not. So
You mentioned valet, so if I'm a guest, I'm arriving, I drop my car and someone puts it away for me.
Puts it down below.
Also thinking the logistics of this, because you're on the south side, and if someone's coming in from the 123, they could come in, they really can't turn into it easily. And so they have to go somewhere, probably between the two buildings, or
Right,
in order to
the main
drop, as
entrance-
opposed to in front of the Port Cochere as a drop point.
Right, the main entrance, if you were to go into the main entrance, which is the highest point, which we discussed between the
Right,
two
between
buildings.
the two buildings, yeah.
that you'd be able to turn, as you're coming in from 123, you'd be able to turn that way and then turn into the Port Cochere. If you were coming and not valeted as a visitor to the restaurant, you turn into the closest to the corner intersection on Cherry Street, and you'd park yourself to the restaurant portion of the hotel.
And looks like three, call it street parking places in the Port Cochere. That's going to be drop off as opposed to parking? Or could you
On
actually
the
park a car
street?
there? Yeah, on the public street.
Public.
We're not taking any street parking. That street parking is going to be for the public.
There is a pull-off though after you go through the Port Cochere to the left.
That's an internal pull-off where we'll have our own vehicle or jitney that will take people to the train station or
Okay.
to the glass house, entry point up on across the train station. We'll have that very localized ability to deliver people to the Historical Society. And we'll have a car ourselves or a transportation element. But we're not intending to close off the public parking spaces.
Finally, if I may, have a van or a truck, I'm delivering stuff to you, or I'm a work person, has to come in and do some work, perhaps on an odd hour because of emergency, I would go where?
You'd go to the Cherry Street entrance, the lower entrance, and you'd be buzzed in, basically. These are going to be secure gates. Our parking lots on Cherry Street and everywhere in New Canaan, these are like gold. People use our lots as parking lots. We probably would make more money if we, charge for parking. But we really want to control the traffic here, because all of our neighbors, are right now are using these lots. And we're now, when we purchased the buildings in June, we are basically now monitoring daily as we do our buildings on Cherry Street to control that. The only way to control these underground lots is to gate them and to have electronic gates, so that only our guests and the valet people and the people who are working there at odd hours, we don't want them to be parking their vans up on the top deck and disturbing our guests.
One final question, having to do with the church, your neighbor. That grassy area which abuts your property, between sort of like a small lawn between the church building and your property.
Which property? The new property?
The church, yeah.
Yes.
In between, there's sort of a grass area.
The wide grass area or the narrow grass area?
Fairly narrow grass area between the church
And the parking structure.
and the parking structure in your property line.
30 feet wide? Is that what you're talking about?
More or less.
Yes.
It
That's
narrows a little bit as you go west. It's sort of
and it turns around into our lot that we currently have.
a larger thing, and there's a small, call it garage or shed there too. Now, as I remember it, on the church, the borderline with your property, there's a I think it's a dry wall as opposed to a wet wall of
It's both.
fieldstone.
It's both.
With, I couldn't tell, but anyway, it has some weeds and things coming out of it, and it's maybe 4 to 5 foot high, depending on
6
where
feet
you
to
are.
7 feet high, yeah.
It varies. I'm wondering what's that gonna look like afterwards? And there's also some kind of drainage thing through the
Well,
middle of it. I didn't understand it, so if you could
Explain it
explain.
to you because we own the other side of the property. There is a major drainage easement for the town of New Canaan that goes right through the church's
Okay.
lawn where they have their meeting, where they have their gatherings.
I didn't know it, saw it, I didn't know what it was.
And that drainage easement takes water in all the catch basins on the above properties, including Main Street, which is another 50 feet higher than that.
Hmm.
And that drains into the Norwalk, the river, basically, way away. So it's a major easement, but the church uses it as a gathering spot because they have a lot of gatherings and it's a very valuable spot for them, exterior spot. They have a parking problem, as you know, they don't have any parking. So the lot that we currently own, that we've owned for many years, we allow them to park there on Sundays. And the former owner of this new property, which we acquired, also allows them in case there's a funeral or whatever. But this is a very valuable piece. And the pastor there has told us that there's a pathway here that runs up the side here and then through to Forest Street that a lot of kids use and get into trouble here. He wants to put a gate basically from the church to the parking garage to stop that gathering spot because it's creating a lot of problems for them. But it's getting back to your question, it's not really maintained that well in terms of that wall, which is owned by them. We try to help them in terms of taking some trees down when they need it.
Wasn't sure where the property line was with that. wall.
It's on the face of that stone wall. So it is a dry wall. And behind that dry wall is actually a foundation wall. And then there's about 5 feet of earth that goes up to the parking garage. So it's not something that's really retaining anything.
Just going back to traffic, since we were on that, and I want to not hijack your presentation because I have a little bit more to go through. Just so, the lay people understand, level of service, the category D, what does that mean in terms of how long are you stopped at an intersection? And I guess it's that Locust Avenue at Cherry in the AM peak. And then what is it today? Right, because this is the proposed conditions. What are the existing conditions? And then, so it's D today.
Yep. And usually we have that in here. Yes, we do. Let's signalize. Unsignalized intersection, level of service D is average control delay. Control delay is the time, well, it's not just the stop time, it's the time to decelerate, accelerate, but regardless of 25 to 35 seconds.
It'll remain, it's that today and it'll remain that even at, okay.
Retail. I think one of the most exciting things about the proposal is that on all these photos, the parking deck from Cherry Street is just a black spot on the photographs. I mean, it's just a big, deep shadow, and you propose to make it retail. But help us imagine what that retail is going to look like. Is it going to be 2 spots? Is it going to be one big? Is it going to have 3 or 4 entrances? Glass front?
Talking about Cherry Street facade?
Cherry Street
So,
retail frontage.
okay, so let's pull that up.
Yeah, go to the rendering.
Just blow it up.
Taking the dead corner and bringing it to life, as you
Right.
say.
So we're anticipating removing 3 to 4 spots within the garage structure. And we're replacing that with a a small retail element just to basically have a dialogue with the church vernacular. We're not looking to create a retail all the way through our parking garage because
It'll be
we want
shallow.
Park. Well, no, it's the size of the parking spaces are approximately 9.5 by 20 there. So 3.5. So that would be 35-ish wide by 20. That's the size of what we want to put there. And it's not going to be an art gallery. It's not going to be a, it's going to be something that the town, it would be convenient for them to pull off, park on Cherry Street. We want to create that width widen that so that there could be a couple of areas for seating, and also deal with that corner, which is for us, it's a big eyesore. But it's not a major retail element.
No, but I think that the closest comparable might be the very shallow and small retail across from the library on Main. You have a couple.
Yes, that's similar in its size. But the thing we have to make sure we're careful of there is when we go to do working drawings there and we target what we want there is what we need to do in terms of restrooms or those kinds of things. If that's going to eat up a lot more space, this is not a moneymaker for us. This is a gesture, basically. So we want to make sure we do something there that will serve the town.
If I could, sorry, just to give a couple of practical examples too, the way that we kind of internally think of that, there are a lot of establishments in town that we ourselves go to, whether it be Club Sandwich, which is a small place that a lot of people go, whether it be, I'm going to butcher the name, so I really apologize if someone is watching this, Flower, Water, Salt, Revenue space, which is a small space. These are places that people really solicit quite frequently, and they're regular places that people go. So again, we're not anticipating we're going to charge someone $60 in rent here. It's going to cost us, the return on investment is going to be quite literally negative because the rent anticipate being quite lower and we have to build out the space. But the point is to create, that's a key part of the pedestrian experience. And obviously if someone's rounding that corner from Locust and Cherry Street, you don't have a reason to round that corner right now. In many cases, at that one corner.
Yeah,
so that's
the Flower, Water deals and all those things. They come with, they're fraught with regulations in terms of food and so forth. I think back, and I'm older than most of you, when my kids were younger, a Mackenzie's type of space, a candy store, nothing so serious. But
Are you bringing back Mackenzie's to New Canaan?
this is not right. But that's the kind of space I want to target. We want to target maybe younger people, entrepreneurs, younger people who live here, who've lived here, and generate those kinds of ideas, because these younger people here are doing much different types of things than we did. So something.
Will there be two of these retail and then the large entrance underneath the triangular roof? That's retail, or is that an entrance into the hotel?
That would be the retail. That is the retail.
That is the retail.
That's it.
Under the triangle, that's it. And what happens to the right of that?
To the right of it are built facades with metal lattice work with ivy that grows. We need to have ventilation in the underground garage, which it's a must. We're not going to close those things, but we want to try to fenestrate that remainder in a way that is palatable for people who are sitting there and having a cup of coffee or whatever. My kids were basically saying, maybe take the peak off of that roof. I disagree, because I think, this goes further than, sure, the railing is nice to wrap around, but this goes a little further and it gives that smaller church something, you know, maybe it's not refined enough, but I think that corner piece is important to do something different with. I don't want to see cars up on that level. That's why I hid that section. So the less cars we see, the more we plant. We're going to cover the fronts of those cars on the top level.
Sure, I take your point on that, sort of the gable you have, because it sets it off. It says there's something different happening here. It was my take on it. And I actually rather like the idea of having retail there. It helps liven up the area. It can provide a possible amenity, generate some traffic and some energy, which there's not that much on that street as far as retail. And so I see that
No,
as
it's a
a
very
useful extension.
We have our offices above Bankwell. So, you know, we see a lot of pedestrian traffic cutting through our properties from East Avenue down the steps through our parking lot. So this was, you know, Laszlo's directive when I was younger. He said, you know, I want you to create pathways through your property. I said, what's going to happen if someone falls? You know, it's not practical. It's just do it, you know, and these kinds of little pathways or shortcuts really, you see a lot of traffic, a lot of foot traffic coming from Main Street down to the offices and then back residential areas. So I think that retail space will be used if we target the right.
You have to merchandise it properly.
Yeah, I think more importantly, which we're on this graphic, it doesn't quite do it justice, but you know, I think a lot of us know that at some point, you know, there are not a lot of areas left in town that are, I'd say, less developed, underdeveloped, whatever you want to phrase it. But there's a lot of areas south of here that who knows at some point may transform into something different. None of us know, but the point is to try to at least just provide a connection so people won't just say, I'm only going to walk on Forest Street. I'm only going to walk on Main Street. I'm only going to walk on Elm Street. And you know, I understand there's going to be some work to improve Pine Street as well, which is great because there are a lot of great uses there that people use. So I think all these things just make a broader network of pedestrian experience, and that can't hurt the town anyway.
It takes time. Our development 25 years ago generated interest down where we are, but and a lot of main Elm Street people who had businesses moved down there because there was parking. But it takes a long time for that to catch, and we're seeing it now with Burtis, but many years later. Remember, Forest Street, the edge of Forest Street, the eastern edge of Forest Street and below, if you were all old enough to be here, those were gas
Ford
stations.
dealers.
They were industrial. That was the industrial line. And then the industrial line moved down. When we developed Cherry Street, it was a junkyard. It was a boarding house. You know, then it moved towards Veedy and Cross. So it takes time, but all of these moves, these smaller moves, are like a seed. If it catches, you know, the values become greater and it moves.
So we're 90 minutes into it. Let's keep going with the presentation. You're on section 4.
Yeah, I think we touched on it. I think I'll just really quickly, not to diminish its importance, but just on we left off at the land that the town owns. So again, I just want to highlight in these bullets right now, our project as conceived is over the permitted gross floor area by 792 square feet. A large portion of that is this retail space that we're talking about, is where that difference comes from. So, you know, it would have been a lot easier for us to not broach this topic for 792 square feet. But I think just in keeping with what we just spoke about, we feel very strongly about it and trying to work with the town to achieve that, which is why we're raising it. So anyway, just to reiterate, there was a strip of land that I'm going to show you in the next slide in 1975 that then owner of 49 to 51 Locust deeded to the town. Right now, you'll see it's an unkept planting bed. If the town were to be willing to deed that back to us, that area of that land is 1,200 square feet approximately. So if you see in this bottom table, we're short 792 square feet. if we were to get that land back, we'd have a surplus of 515 square feet and therefore be compliant. So on this next graphic, you'll see the deed map right here, and I'll just zoom in and you'll see this narrow strip of land right here, which is the subject area. And to the right, you'll see its current condition. You have the sidewalk, and just beyond that, you have the dirt with some plantings that runs all the way up along the parking structure. So
Can we pause for a second? Sarah, how does that work?
So, as some of you may remember, this was a similar issue with the Burtis Ave development you all approved. They had to purchase parcel K from the town. So essentially, they would have to submit a request. It would have to get approved by town council. It's not actually something the Planning and Zoning Commission would approve. Let's say you all wanted to approve this application, the way around it and what you all did with Burtis Ave is you would approve it as if they didn't get the land, and it would just be a condition of approval that they can only build that retail space if they get the deeded land. So if you all,
And they would have to go to town council
and then it would come back to you all as an 824. But if for whatever reason your approval is integral on them only having, like, if you would deny this application if it didn't have the Cherry Street retail, you couldn't approve the application then. So you'd have to approve it with knowing that there's a chance that the Cherry Street retail would not happen.
Does it?
Go ahead.
Sorry, but what about the option B that we submitted?
So I'm just saying that if the commission decides that they don't like your proposal unless it has the Cherry Street retail,
Oh, I
they
see.
couldn't approve
So
it.
just a little bit of it. Are you done? Yeah.
Does
So
that
ju-
answer your question though?
It does.
Yep.
So just so you know, we've already started discussions with the first selectman, Tiger, and there is a consensus that there isn't a need for this strip. We want to also take some of those telephone poles.
there is a need to leave it the way it is.
There's no need for the strip.
No need for this.
They don't need to be paying taxes on it. We're going to be maintaining it anyway. We're responsible for it.
Yeah, the only thing I'm concerned, knowing the topography there and the greater than 90-degree turn there or sharper than 90-degree turn. What I'm worried about as a town engineer and DPW being concerned about that right turn and truncating the right turn and making it even tighter.
Yeah, the sharp point that you see,
I know.
is that what you're
It's
talking
just a
about?
deed line, I get it, but by you pushing the curb line and the paving out into that area, which is.
We're not going to do that.
That's what your previous plan showed.
So you see the actual deeded piece that goes out to a point?
Yeah.
That deed, that was the old deed when it was Baldwin Avenue.
Uh-huh.
If we're successful in getting this deed, we would basically follow the radius that we are creating.
You wouldn't need the corner.
There was discussion. Our intention is to push for that. What would be helpful if the planning board makes a recommendation that they would be in favor of that retail in that lower level,
Understood.
it would give us some clout to finish our negotiations.
Now, I'll let you guys keep going with the presentation, but I would like to just identify for next month's meeting, because you're going to come back to us with more information. Your civil is working, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
As part of that civil plan, we'd like to see not only the typical setback and property lines and everything else, we'd like to see an overlay of this information on that civil plan relative to what you're proposing. So everyone has a clear understanding of how much of that corner is either going away or coming back, or a little of both.
You noticed when Andrew went through the calculations and we had a 515 square foot surplus.
Mhm.
That's going to be taken away when we shape that.
Right. Yeah. Understood.
Commissioner Radman, that effectively ends our portion of the presentation. So, I know we already kind of started the dialogue, but just wanted to wrap by saying thank you for the time and effort in reviewing, and obviously we welcome any other questions and feedback from you all.
Thank you. Commissioners, I know we've been asking along the way, but anyone have a list?
I mean, I have stuff on the text, but I don't know if you want to go technical or you want to do project stuff first.
Let's do project stuff first, then come back to the text. So I've got a couple of things. We talked about the retail space on the east side with the garage. That's gonna be single tenant. The fourth floor or the new addition to the top of the building, is that what you're representing in the renderings? Is that the current design intent, or is there more evolution to that design? Because it looks like it's glazed glass all the way across. I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just, there has a certain aesthetic to it, which, everyone's going to react to. Or are there options on that you've explored that you would want to share?
We like that sleekness because it will, at the end of the day, reflect the sky. And it will become more invisible than some of these mechanical towers that you see on buildings. So that's the intent. We're open to refinement, but we're not looking necessarily to show the structure on the outside of the vertical structures. So that's the purpose of the spandrel glass. So the structure goes to the edge, and then we clad a piece of glass at the edge of the structure. That's the idea.
Gotcha.
Of course, that can be refined if you have objections to it.
Can I jump in with a question
Of
on
course.
that? What about the 80-foot wall length limitation that Sarah pointed out in the planner's memo?
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll touch on that. I actually wanted to clarify something if I could. Sarah, I think when we were reviewing the language, when we read the planner's memo, we were kind of confused by the existing zoning regulations because I believe there's language that says unless approved or changed by the commission that prefaces that language.
Yeah, so it says unless modified by the commission, but that is not an enforceable regulation. It would need to say special permit or some other thing. The commission can't just grant a variance. And then there would need to be criteria that laid out under what grounds could they via special permit, modify this. So that's where my recommendation to the commission was, do you want them to propose another text change? Because that's what would need to happen for the 80, for it to stay as is, or do you want them to redesign?
For what? The regulation?
The building wall, like.
So I would like to speak to that. There's two areas that we're talking about. Am I correct? On the wall length. So the first area on the ground floor is basically the length of the existing wall. And then there's a jog back, if I recall, to the admin space. So that existing wall, right now is 97 feet. The existing building is 97 feet. The one-story structure that is attached to the lobby, it's a one-story structure. I believe it's not causing any impact to any neighbor. And it's not visually able to be seen actually with what we have going in terms of the planting. So how do we solve that if you already have a 97-foot building there? We've jogged it back 3 feet. We could jog the admin back after the 97 feet and take some more room out of the admin, but we can't take the whole admin.
When you're saying admin, you're referring to the lobby?
It's
Yeah,
this
right
jogged
here.
area that
So
shows
this-
addition one-story admin space.
That's right here.
Oh,
That's one of those walls.
So I'm confused. I was talking about the fourth floor.
Both are non-compliant.
two.
Yeah,
There's two.
This is one.
Okay.
So the fourth
But why
floor-
is that one I understand that the existing building is at 97 feet is non-conforming, but why is that addition
Yeah, by
non-conforming?
virtue of that 3-foot jog, doesn't that satisfy it?
No, it has to be a 10-foot offset. It's only a
Oh.
3-foot offset.
Okay.
It has to go back 10 feet and then go 20 feet the other way. So it doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense. I don't really understand it.
Well, it's trying to prevent long,
Long,
Yeah.
yeah,
big
facades,
masses.
like what exists.
Yes, I agree. But I don't understand the 20.
So it's for a length, so you go in 10 feet and it can't go back out to the
So
original
you
length
cross
for
20 feet.
Yeah.
I'm only differentiating the ground floor at this point,
Mhm.
which you have a 3-story building. And then you have this ground floor appendage, which is a 1-story. As far as the upper floor, that's a continuous line basically of 87 feet.
Right.
And then it jogs back, I believe, close to 20 feet.
Right, so that's the one I was talking
Could
about.
could that 87 feet be, could we shave off the 2 ends of the rooms and make that a shorter length? We could, but it would make, we probably lose a room, because I wouldn't want to shave off 2 feet. Those rooms already are very small on the top, but we could do that if the board sees that as an issue. You're not looking at that wall really you're only looking at it from the Cherry Street side. You can't see it really all the way through on the other side. And because of the setbacks, I don't see that as could we approach that in another way?
Well, so I think to what Sarah said, we don't have the discretion to decide whether or not we see that as an issue. That's what our regulations say. So we have to either follow the regulations or
Unless we do
change
a
the
text change.
regulations.
Yeah, my understanding is the text change could be something very similar to the way you deal with building line, which is basically to preface the statement with subject to receiving a special permit or something of that nature. And the criteria could be determined based on whatever you all would guide or, require of us. But it sounds like that would be for a special permit process as well, unless I'm mistaken.
Yes, yeah, I think
Right.
so. But so you guys need to think about, whether you want to change your design or whether you want to try and change the regulation on that.
But I mean, it is also up to the commission as well. Do you want
I would
more
take
amendments
the
to the
lead.
zoning regulations, or do you want the design to stay as is?
Look, I would take your recommendations, and we as architects can design. And if we're forced to do it, we will do it. Well, the flexibility and the type of room designs that we've done on that penthouse area are smaller, but we could make one side of the, we have to make it even on both sides for the structure.
Mhm.
So I could probably cut 1.5 feet on either side of that building, John, right? And still have a viable room. So, but that gives you only 3 feet from the 87 minus 3, it's 84.
Right.
I could do that if the board sees that as an issue.
Is there any access from those rooms to is there kind of like a rooftop deck, balcony?
No.
Okay.
We don't want anyone looking in
Right.
to the guests. We were talking about doing some planting there and maintenance. We don't really want that. We want this to be a clean, more of a modernist approach, similar to what was done next to Walter Stewart's. I think that building was very well done. It fits within the context of the old building. And we wanted to have that approach so that we would minimize the rooftop imposition.
Yeah, I mean, I guess just speaking for myself, I can't speak for anyone else on the commission. I see what you're saying, and I like the cleanness of the design that you've proposed. I also don't like continuing to add text changes to our zoning regulations, so that doesn't really make a decision here, but I guess, I mean, I could go either way on this one.
When we talk about, and I'll make this comment brief, when we initially proposed this as a balanced form-based solution, and we've seen form-based solutions in this town that go heavy on text changes. There are examples right around the corner from us. And I told them, these guys, I said, don't outweigh and don't use form-based to just look to an inward issue that you have on your project. because that affects the neighbors if you stretch those form-based regulations. In this case, because of where the building is and it's away from the property lines, our neighbors with another project had form-based solutions that sat on our property line. And I don't see that as an effective form-based. That's not balanced. It may be a great project, but it wasn't necessarily considering the neighbors on either side. We made a very deliberate move in this project to keep whatever additions that we are going to do towards the middle because of our setbacks.
Mhm.
So we feel because we're self-imposing those setbacks on most sides of this project, you know, we feel we don't feel that's a big ask.
Can we get, for the next meeting, comparisons of the height of this building, 49 to 51, and how it compares to the height of some of the surrounding buildings?
Yes, we have them.
Yeah, I figured you did.
We have everyone. So yes, we will.
And your understanding is that the heights would be comparable even though we're adding a fourth floor?
Absolutely. And we will not be adding mechanical on top of this hotel space. 49 to 51. So it's going to be a sleek top. All of our mechanicals are going to be on the ground floor where we were talking about the Baptist church. There was a 5-foot section. We're gonna basically put all of our units there and conceal them.
I mean, I'll just add, to Commissioner Nielsen, I like the design and I am okay with adding a text amendment for, the design in this case, but there's other components in the text, and I'll get to it, that the scope of this text amendment needs to be narrowed significantly to a hotel. I don't even think you could apply under the text amendment you've written because you are not a mixed use building. You are a commercial building. Mixed use has to have a residential component and this doesn't. So there's elements that this needs to be tightened because I think a hotel use is a very unique use in town. And I understand that the 3 examples that you used ahead in 4.8H were for other projects elsewhere. But this is not just a retail project. This is a hotel. You have a lot of unique characteristics. I think that those projects didn't have in their residential mixed use. So I'm okay if we narrow the scope of this being a hotel to adding that text.
Yeah, I think we have to just
And removing the residential part.
Yes.
move the
100%.
residential completely.
It's very, very narrow in terms of just this
It's a
project.
hotel special permit.
Yep, which
Commercial use, it's not mixed commercial and residential. Right.
Right. No residential based on many factors that residential should not be getting this
Right.
benefit without doing some other things for the town.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, we totally recognize that comment and understand it. I think the core of that text, like we were talking about, is primarily just to assess we thought it was very well written from the point of view of assessing the site and the characteristics, and that's primarily the reason why we wanted to leverage that, because there were similar form-based developments that leverage that. So, but understand we have to tighten.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll just do the tech stuff now. Just,
Wait, sorry, just before we get into that, there are still other, setback issues with the project and whatnot. So I just want to make sure we don't devolve
all right. Well,
before we get to that.
yeah, let's talk about that, especially the building line relative to the porte cochere and the overhangs and everything. Currently, the structure for the porte cochere is not into that building line, correct? The columns, it's the
No, it's
overhang,
not the column.
it's the eaves and the rakes of the,
Yeah. The columns are within.
just inside.
setback.
That always was the case. We wouldn't want to move that because then you narrow the access to the drive. I mean, the porte cochere.
But so just for the commission, so they understand, I'm estimating like 14.5 square feet is over the setback line, which that's a hard line. You don't have anything written where you can exempt them from the setback. You have it written so that you can exempt them from building over the building line. So there is still a portion that's violating the zoning regulations. That's not fixable through a special permit.
But it's the overhang that's violating that coverage?
Correct.
So it's fixable.
If they remove it.
What's your overhang currently, the dimension?
That was this line, I'm sorry if it's not super clear, but that was that red line that John highlighted before.
The red line is pulling it back.
That's what I'm saying. The current line is the black here, that's what comes into the blue setback line there, but our alt scenario is the red line that pulls the overhang to within the confines of the property setback, and hence is compliant.
The property setback is 6 feet.
Yeah.
Building line is further back.
Right here.
Yeah, I mean, right now we're talking about the property.
The property line setback, if we pull that to the red line, and that's not a hard thing to redesign, because if you look at our columns, they taper up. So that taper, as you taper the column, you can attach it to the overhang. You can make the columns smaller if you had to. So that's not something that we can do that easily.
What's your width of porte cochere for the drive-through clearance?
16 feet, I believe.
16?
Yeah.
Snug.
One way.
Is one way?
Yeah.
One way.
Okay, so you can meet the setback, but you can't meet the building line, and we have the ability via special permit to approve something over the building
We
line.
can meet the setback.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
I have one question. It's not about design. It kind of gets to the fundamental question, and it hasn't been asked, but we're making a text change to allow a hotel. We haven't had a hotel this size in 100 years in this small town, because we're a small town without a highway. We don't have a big commercial base. Most people say this is great. We're going to get a hotel. Nobody has to go to Stanford, Norwalk anymore. Our guests don't have to go. But there are skeptics who say, we are too small a town and this is not going to work. And so I have to ask the question, which is, if this doesn't work, you have to adjust the business plan, or, what happens? Because we haven't had a need for a 48 key hotel in this town since the bird house, whatever, Morse Court, since whatever it was called on Morse Court.
Got several hotels, but
So why is this gonna work?
we feel, for a couple of reasons, we feel that there are more people visiting this town for the organizations that are currently in this town. There have been organizations that have developed over the years. People come from all over to visit these areas. That's one.
Does that mean tourism?
Yes.
It's a tourism-based Glass House,
Tourism.
Grace Farm.
Tourism base, and these events that happen in town. There are people that come from out of town who have families here, who have no place to stay, and they come via transit. And they want to stay here for more than a couple of days. There are families here who come for the summer now, who have moved out of town, you know this very well, who live in Florida. And they say, we want to come back and visit our kids, or we want to come back and visit our friends. There's no place to stay. They don't want to stay in Norwalk. Or if we had 3 times the amount of the extended stay units right now, I have a line of people who want these right now, the extended stay. But what's changing now is the businesses in town that have remote CEOs in San Francisco, or people who have these remote businesses, they have accountants coming in for 4 or 5 days, and they deal with the headquarters of these people. And so they need places to stay. So you have a much bigger variety as the commercial spaces have evolved into different ways of doing business. You're getting more business now than you would have in a traditional hotel because you're drawing from many different areas. But
Historically, I think though, most of these hotels rely on a larger commercial base, a lot more business customers. And I think that's why the skeptics are saying, how are you going to fill a room on a Tuesday in March? I mean, I get the summer visits and the holiday visits, but even our tourism, I know because I sit in the Glass House building and I see there's not that many people coming for tourism alone. And I think I think that there is a demand for extended stay. And that if the skeptics are right, more of this is going to have to become extended stay. If
that's why we want to provide flexibility in the rooms that we've designed. But there is something that we've been hearing from business owners, as well as families. They don't want to rent a car anymore. They don't want to stay in Stamford, rent a car, and eat in Stamford. They want to patronize our restaurants. But they don't want the inconvenience of finding a parking space. So renting a car from a business standpoint, staying in Norwalk, the person in Norwalk is staying there and he's going to eat in the deli next to the hotel in Norwalk. The business owners who've come to us said, if you have an in-town hotel that's walkable, we can book X amount of rooms from you in advance per year. We've gotten 8 requests there, and there's significant amount of rooms. A 40-room hotel is not a big hotel. It's not a Marriott. And that's one use. A person who's coming into town and looking at houses, here's an example you can recognize. I can come Saturday morning. I've got 1 hour. John, show me X amount of houses, right? They're interested in the house. Got to go back to New York. I can't stay here. How many times has that happened? And they didn't have the ability to stay, kick the tires of the town. You're a host. You tell them about the town, but most of these people want to kick the tires. They want to go to a football game. There's all kinds of things we haven't tapped. And historically, the hotels that have been here have been patronized. The reason they have gone out of business is because they've become decrepit. And the managers who first managed them did a great job. But as generations and money didn't maintain them, they were sold for different uses.
I think the other thing too is there's obviously many of us who have been around Metro New York for a long time. We're accustomed to hearing about hotels running at 85, 90, 95% occupied in those cities. This is not what this hotel is. We fully recognize that. When we've assessed these other sites and when you look at new hotels around these areas, like in Westport, like in other towns up the coast, 20,000 population of 20,000, there are hotels that are proliferating, not diminishing. And I think that represents something that's changed. And part of the data also suggests an element of that. So we're not assuming that this is going to be 75, 80% occupied. We're not assuming that. We're assuming it's going to be below that, and we've accounted for that. So when we talk about these smaller business segments, while they might be devalued by the average person of, oh, you're going to give me 150 to 200 room nights of a block, that in and of itself is not noteworthy. But when you start to add up those numbers with all of these organizations, you start to get to a base level of 10, 15% from business, of which many people believe there is 0%. Many people believe there is 0% demand from business. And I think that's, to your point, that's the skeptic arguing that. I think we see and we know the leisure side of it. And just because it doesn't exist and there was a shift away from that, I don't think that's reason to say it shouldn't be there. And that's what we're trying to illustrate. So
This has been very helpful. I mean, one, I just don't want to approve something and they say you should have known you were gonna get something else. It's very significant to me that you're saying that this does not require 80% occupancy to work. That's something I had not heard before.
The thing.
Can I just give a data point as well? I think hopefully this will be helpful. I think from an occupancy and an ADR standpoint, average daily rate or nightly rate, what's happened in these Connecticut markets is that the average daily rate, partly driven by inflation, has gone from 270 pre-COVID a night, across the whole year, all the way up to now for many called mid to upper scale hotels from $350 and up on the rate side of things. On the occupancy side of things, pre-COVID, those hotels were operating, somewhere in the sphere of high 60s to around 70% across the year. Some of those include hotels that rely on a lot of business travel, like Norwalk. Some of them are more heavily leisure travel, like Southport or Westport or all these different. It's a blend of markets because we don't have the luxury saying we're in Times Square, there are 100 hotels here, and you know exactly what you're going to pinpoint from occupancy and rate. So for this, you have to look at that kind of as a mixture and say the data is showing us that we're getting into occupancy growth, and it's been in excess of 70%. And that's in these markets that we perceive to be more leisure-oriented markets that are not heavily reliant on business demand.
The flag hotels aren't interested in these places. But
well, that's like they've reached out to us, but we're not interested.
We're not interested. But I'm going to say a couple things to your point. I think if you do something well and you really focus on this hotel as being a hotel that will serve the organizations that are here, the businesses that are here, the community that's here, it's a very tight-knit community, and word gets around. I think the skeptics could have hotels in other areas that will maybe lose business to New Canaan. So I'm not worried about the skeptics. When we did our first project 25 years ago, people said no one's going to move from South Avenue to Cherry Street. And that didn't happen. We took the risk. We're willing to take that risk. We also have a mixed use component to this project, which I think shields you in a sense for changing times. These times that we see today, there is no horizon anymore to what you're going to expect from a real estate point of view to business point of view. It's not a 5-year horizon anymore. The world's changing quickly. That's why I think this hotel will serve that volatile horizon, because people who live in Florida may not buy in New Canaan. They can't find a place. People who come from the city may want to spend more time here in the summer, or people from Florida want to spend more time here in the summer. There's a lot of places that we're hearing they want to come back here, but there's no place to stay. And I'll say another thing. Both of my kids live in New Canaan. They have in-laws that come, and we're happy to have the grandkids for a certain amount of time. But there's a need for those grandparents to have a quiet space as well. And we're getting a lot of those requests.
Answer your question?
Yes.
Good.
But I don't really want to communicate with you, and that wouldn't be proper. Until
No, I just had to ask, are we going to approve one thing and then it's going to become something else?
Good. The building is the building, right? We have an excess amount of FAR. So when you look at the building, the building could become something else because it's there. It's a very flexible plan. If you really look at the building, it can. So of course, we don't want that. We want this to be successful, and we want it to be a very specialized type of hotel that belongs here.
Commissioners, anything further on the design side?
So there was one other thing in my memo about the traffic engineer.
Yes.
You know, if the commission wants a peer reviewer for anything, now would be the time to discuss and decide that. So just recommend discussing that.
I personally feel we should. I think it's a, to Mr. Sidori's point, it is the gateway from the east side, one of the gateways. And with what they're proposing in terms of the curb conditions and the parking modifications, driveway, well, elimination of a driveway cut. But the existence of the, for example, the driveway cut on the north edge that's really close to the corner, that always presents a problem when
Just to clarify, the proposed stuff in the right of way that impacts the street, that will be reviewed by Maria Coplet, who is an engineer. So that would be done by her. The traffic engineer would specifically be looking at the
traffic volume, I get it.
yeah. So it just,
Yeah.
you know, if just want to make sure that's clear.
Mr. Chairman, I would be sympathetic to requiring an outside traffic engineer. It's the sore point of a lot of things in town regarding traffic.
It is.
And I think kicking the tires a little harder with an independent, our own, paid for by the applicant, traffic engineer would be a wise move.
I agree. I mean, yeah, I agree. I'm, you know, a bit concerned of, you know, just how we're gonna, you know, affect or mitigate the impact of, say, you know, 60 new cars in an hour coming in and out of the space on a Saturday that don't exist today. I mean, people know how traffic is around, particularly the intersection of, you know, right there with Forest. So
in particular, this is the first hotel we've had a look at, and they're very particular types of animals, who has 24/7 businesses, and combining it with some retail, with a restaurant, with some office, and all the interactions of this. I think, you know, there are a lot of moving parts. I think we got one chance to do it right, and we want to do it with nothing but net. I think this is a wise move.
I agree.
Now, how will that work? So do you?
So the town selects the traffic consultant, and then we receive a proposal for the cost, and then the applicant provides us with 150% of that fee. It gets held in a pass-through account. We cover the expenses. Anything we don't spend goes back to you at the end of the application.
It's reasonable.
It's belts and suspenders, you know. It's one of the, I mean, there will obviously be public input and public opinion on the design and the use and everything else.
We expect
But
that.
traffic is one of those that we need to have double coverage on the traffic analysis. Not to, you know, undermine your work. We fully respect all the information you've put together, and, you know, it's very comprehensive, but we need the belts and suspenders.
These are very common in major complex projects.
Yes, I understand.
Yep. Okay, commissioners, text amendment. Any further comments? I know we've touched on the language of the residential side of it. We definitely want to clean that up.
I want to hear
Yeah.
what Mr. Knowles has to say. I mean, I do think this can be simplified. I don't exactly have the solution to how to do it though.
Well, before we get there, are you working with an attorney on any of this?
Andrew's really doing it, but we could certainly, you know, Andrew's capable of communicating, but it's not correct to communicate with Eric, obviously. Can we communicate?
You have to go through Sarah.
Through Sarah, I would feel more comfortable. I don't want to have any, want to keep this on the, you know, filtered, I would say.
No, it just all communication through.
They can both get there, but I'd rather the communication come from Sarah.
It has to.
It has
Yeah.
to.
There's no other
There's no
alternative.
choice.
I'm fine with that.
Public, the communication has to go through me for the commission. Just come through me.
Just, yeah.
No, I mean, just you know, again, I'm not a Connecticut attorney. So, but, you know, reading zoning and just trying to figure out it is for you guys and for kind of, you know, so that we're going through the whole, you know, zoning kind of overhaul sort of thing and all the,
We can certainly run that also by
yeah.
our attorney as well, once it gets to a point that you're comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, I just think, you know, I don't want to pick through the language specifically, and I know you guys modeled it after sections that existed, but I would consider, I guess, you know, for the hotel special permit, considering findings that are particular to a hotel, which you have some, I mean, in the height, kind of what you've decided with the height, and I think like C and D of 4, like neighborhood character, that sort of thing, I think is important. You know, again, talked a lot about traffic, finding that it's not going to negatively impact, you know, pedestrian traffic, all that sort of stuff. I think to build that in, I mean, just small things, you know, the 30 feet to 4 stories. I don't like saying 4 stories because that could be a, you know, a 25-foot, a 30-foot sort of, you know, event space on top, you know, keep it narrow, keep it capped at what the height that you're proposing sort of.
And the
thing.
use.
Yeah, hotel and right, you know, the mixed use out, and this is a hotel. I think this is a hotel special permit because of the uniqueness of the use. You know, I think that's kind of the big, tailor it to your use, right? This is, I think, these projects were mixed use projects that had residential components and, you know, retail on the bottom.
They all were.
They all were,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's not what this is. This is a transient use. There's a lot of people coming in. There's a lot of people going out. You have all these different things that are not, you know, a 4-story building with 20 apartments and a ground floor pet shop. So that's my advice. And, you know, I think you guys know the gist of what we're trying to look for, and all the comments, I think you can kind of put together findings that will say, okay, well, you know, there's no traffic impact. You've provided a, you know, engineer report. We reviewed it. Okay, therefore you meet X. So that's kind of the gist. Got it.
Just to clarify, because I think we have a comment in similarity. The above 30 feet and up to 4 stories, to me, that feels a little too open-ended. Yeah. So
I think it should be
so you need to have a cap, not a bottom, not a floor. You need a ceiling.
Ceiling.
Yeah.
Not stories.
And probably not stories, a ceiling and height.
On retail, so just
Something like this right now.
in retail B, so exemption number 1, that is the exact language. So yeah, it's 30 feet and up to 3 stories. So
I'm not sure we should model
it's
it.
already there in the regs.
Yeah. So I think, agree with Krista in putting, you know, what's your height of your building? Let's cap it at that.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I mean,
Or give yourself a foot or 2 foot,
Yeah,
whatever it's, you know, something like that.
I think conceptually, we don't have any issue with that. When we were looking at this, there seemed to be natural guardrails based on contextuality. So that's why we viewed it that way. And because we were responding to what's there, we didn't want to be arrogant and act as if there wasn't a reason for why certain things were done in the zoning regulations. So we were reacting to that, but we are happy to take that knowledge. Things have evolved in the past, so we can react to that and incorporate that.
And you have other components of zoning relief that you're asking for, right? So if you want to bake it all into one special permit, please do so. So then we can, you know, make these 4 or 5 findings, whatever you come up with, to that end. You know, particularly the character and the location, building lines, and, you know, setbacks of wall, you know, lengths, that sort of thing.
Mr. Commissioner, some of the bullet points I had a little challenge with, you know, such as excellence in design, which enhances pedestrian experience. Then you have the such as after everything. I'm not pretty sure what point the such as's are, frankly. I would question whether they really need to be there. Bullet point 3, meaningful design solutions to properties. it assumes there's an existing property as opposed to a greenfield site where you scrape everything and you put up something new. At least that's my read on it.
Could we not just get rid of all the bullet points and just
Yeah.
keep the first sentence? Proposed development,
It's too
significant
wordy.
community benefit,
Um,
period.
Yeah, that's fine. Again, I just want to emphasize, and we're going to take your comments. This was something existing.
Yeah.
So all these such as, this is not, yeah, no, I
Give me
hear you.
feedback, that's all.
Just also caution the commission, you don't want it to be too broad that then it's very easy to interpret whichever way you so choose. You do want to have some guardrails so it's clear what needs to be done.
Looking for just right, sort of Goldilocks kind of situation. I take your point.
But yeah, findings of neighborhood character, findings of, no adverse impacts on traffic, all the quality of life, those sorts of things. And you could even just toss this out the window and start again, but, take some of the things that kind of like, but those, I would focus on those points as the findings that we need to make to protect, the community for any potential negatives. And then that's the findings.
Understood.
Just a quick question for the commission. Is there a preference then that they don't actually follow the template that these 3 other projects before them did that created this 1, 2, 3 exemptions? And it could just be special permit hotel, exempt from X, Y, and Z dimensional standards as long as you meet A, B, C, and D, and just
I
have
think
it.
that's cleaner.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's narrow, yeah.
It is not a typical mixed use and residential development. It's a unique, it's the first hotel.
They're special animals.
Yeah, it's the first hotel application that this town has ever seen, because it's previously been grandfathered inns that we've had in town that have been around for 100 years and went out of business.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to just check with the town attorney if that's a significant enough change that it should technically be a new application. And just procedurally, how we should handle that. I don't think it impacts the process per se, but just want to make sure we're doing everything
You don't want to start over.
properly.
We'll start over, but we want to keep it clean and simple.
It's probably fine because the content's the same.
Right.
But I just want to confirm.
I'm just gonna throw this out here for the commission, but I was thinking about it a little differently when I was thinking about the height of this being up to 4 stories. And I think as Eric alluded earlier, the only time we really allow that in residential context is when we're getting something in return, such as affordable housing. Obviously, that doesn't apply here. This is a different animal, but I do think that your extended stay apartments are filling a residential need in this community. It's obviously it's not affordable housing, it's a different animal, but I think there's benefit to the community by providing those. And I'm just thinking as you craft these findings, meets the traffic study, enhances the surrounding neighborhood, whatever, maybe you want to add a bullet about providing alternative lodging options.
Extended stay.
Yeah.
We see this as a mixed use project. I know there's defined terms, but those terms are changing in terms of how we're looking at these things in real time. So I think your point's correct. If we can verbalize that.
Do you have any, I guess it's all parking lot. There's no open space on the site, no greenery. You can put tables and chairs that you could
do in the corner.
Which is,
you could invite the public into.
yes.
That's
public.
public and that's public and private or guests.
I assume you're going to get a liquor
Facing the
license.
corner.
Am I missing it?
Yeah, right there. Yep.
Right there.
Yep.
Because of its walkability, we are going to work with, we want synergies. We don't want, 5 restaurants and competing against each other. We want this to be additive to the business community. And I think we're going to be reaching out to these business owners they need us to have regularity in their schedules.
As I understand it, you're generating traffic for them and you're essentially piggybacking off of restaurants and other amenities there. So you don't have to provide them yourself. You're just getting them for free. I assume you got to contact someone about using a gym. I would assume so, and everything else.
We'll
So
have a
Yeah,
small
it's
area.
some of
But-
us and everything,
But
all that.
we intend to use the town. That is our amenity. We're not looking to create, 100-foot pools or big spas or whatever. We want this to really work with this town. So it's easy for people who come to town and they want to stay here for a couple of days instead of just coming to.
I would also agree with Commissioner Nielsen who talked about the extended stay, because I know people who have been renovating and, where are you gonna go?
It's gonna create a housing boom in town.
There are
Construction boom.
There are very restrictions that this commission has put on Airbnbs, so not a lot of those around.
Well, you see the
You would feel
flexibility. of our
grandma and
plans.
grandpa spending 3 weeks with a newborn, and they want to have their own spot.
And I think, again, I think it just speaks to, I don't necessarily like it personally, but it speaks to the asynchronous nature of the world we're living in now, and things are just not happening as they were. There's no strict schedule of things, and maybe we're reverting a little bit back, but I don't think it's going to be a full reversion. So the world has changed in some ways.
I've also known someone personally who had to move from New York to Stamford because they couldn't commute back and forth while they were house hunting, because they just couldn't take the time.
We just don't want John Engel to reserve 30 rooms for his weekend tours. That's going to be a problem. And
Why would it be a problem? He's gonna max you out at 100%.
Wheel spinning.
It'll be on the blog tomorrow.
Be on the blog and locked up.
Commissioners, anything further on the text side?
No. Sarah, are you kind of clear on the advice we gave so that?
Yeah, I think that covers everything.
Threading the needle a bit.
Anything further from your team
Point, I agree.
for tonight?
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, I think
The things we've asked for and civil and
we're going to rewatch
Yeah.
we're going to look at the minutes too, but I
I
mean,
encourage you to just work with Sarah. Feel free to reach out to her and go through it. And then next month, we'll review the supplemental materials, modified text as necessary, and then we'll take public input as well.
Be ready.
yeah, and we thank you for the suggestions because I think they were very helpful.
Great. So these two applications are continued into the October meeting. We have no further deliberation on anything. Administrative action. New Canaan Library updated parking study for Center School lot.
Yes, so don't know how many of you were on the commission actually when the library went done. I think
I remember that.
I think the numbers are dwindling a little bit, but so
I remember it.
yeah. So part of the approval process, not from P and Z, but from the town, was this memorandum of understanding when the town gave the library money towards the project. And they got rid of all the parking over at the library property, and now the parking is all at the Center School lot. One of the stipulations in the memorandum of understanding was that within a year of the library getting their certificate of occupancy, the town at the library's expense would commission a traffic study or a parking study to assess, are we underparked? Are we overparked? What's the supply and demand of parking now that we have a municipal lot and the library lot all in one go? And that study gets sent to the Planning and Zoning Commission for review once it's complete to make a determination of, do we need more parking at Center School or not? So the library got their CO in August. They'd been operating with a TCO for the last year and a half, but they finally got their CO. So I just got approval from the Board of Selectmen on Tuesday to enter into a contract with Hardesty and Hanover to do this parking study. So my guess is the November, December commission meeting, you're going to be hearing this traffic study.
and remind me, but as part of the original application for the library, was there not an alternate site plan for parking submitted as part of that for the expansion, for the potential expansion?
Yes, so in
That's still in play?
correct. So in theory, if the traffic study said, yeah, you need more parking and, you know, you agree with what the traffic engineering saying, you would then make a recommendation to the town that's, you know, you should be doing alternate
Yep.
parking situation B, and then the town makes that final determination.
Spots in the lot now.
I don't have those numbers off the top of my head.
So if I make up numbers, let's say it's 125 spots now. And I think the breakdown was roughly.
So I think it's actually, so I think
2/3
it's,
library, 1/3 public.
yeah, so it's actually 76 spots to the library and it's like 95 for the town.
76 plus 95?
Yep.
There's that many there?
Mm.
So, okay, ballpark.
And then I think,
170, right?
yeah, so I think,
If the parking engineer comes back and the revised plan added 20 spots.
Yep.
If the parking engineer comes back and says you need 40 spots,
I don't, that's a great question. I think the way the MOU was written is, if it says that there is a need for parking, then the library needs to finance this additional parking. If there's more after that where there's a problem, it's probably gonna be that, you know, they're gonna have to come up with mitigation strategies, change their programming. Didn't really, you know, that's where you guys come in to
that'll be an interesting conversation.
figure that out. Yep. And that's why we're hiring a traffic engineer to come up with recommendations if it comes to that.
Do we need to do anything about it tonight?
Nope, I just wanted to give you all the heads up.
Give us a heads up. Meeting schedule for 2026.
So that was posted online and sent to you all just this morning. I was sent the draft budget meeting schedule for 2026 and
Board of Finance.
so and town council.
Town
So our February and March meetings, if we keep those dates as is, we're gonna get kicked to the boardroom. Is that okay?
Is what it is. We need to be flexible too.
Yep. It's just otherwise we could change it by a day and then be in here. So that was only, okay. That was it. So if you guys are ready, you would need to approve that.
It's to approve.
No, the schedule. You guys have to
Schedule.
vote on the schedule.
Can we do a show of hands vote?
Sure.
Show of hands to approve the meeting schedule for 2026. We are fully approved. Rock and roll. Unanimous. Minutes. Anyone have any questions or comments or changes to the minutes from last month's meeting? First Avenue, Jonathan, I think we were fine. Okay. Same thing, show of hands for approval of August 2025 meeting minutes.
I was not here.
You were not here.
I was not here.
Who was? We got, we have enough.
We
Okay.
were, I was.
Okay. Wait, so who is abstaining from the vote?
Chris is abstaining.
I am not here. I will not.
Only person, Herring and Swerdlow are not.
No, but who's so
I'm abstaining.
Commissioner Chris is abstaining
Yep.
and Commissioner Canag is abstaining.
Yep.
Okay. Did you get that, Karen?
I wasn't here, but I read the
So if you didn't-
draft that
if
you
didn't
sent.
attend- If you didn't attend the meeting, don't vote for the minutes.
Okay.
Got it. Yeah, right now we've got Knowles, Mensching, Engel, Nielsen, Radman, who were at the meeting.
Okay.
And I saw hands on all of those, so.
Yeah.
We're
Okay.
good. Thank you, everyone. Meeting adjourned.
All right.
Thank you.